My sister demands I postpone my wedding for her divorce recovery. Parents skip my big day and toss out my belongings. My whole family is upset with me. My name is Lexi, and I am 27 Fahrenheit. Please listen to my story before passing judgment on me. Rose, my 32-year-old sister, was divorced a few months ago. I've been making an effort to support her during this difficult time. However, Rose and I have never been close, if I'm being completely honest. Her vast sisterhood was lacking. For years, she and her small circle of friends tormented me, and my parents did nothing to stop it. In my family, I always felt alienated. Let's fast forward to Rose's divorce a few months ago. She's been a complete mess. She had to return to live with our parents since she was unemployed. It didn't matter to me because I don't see my parents or Rose very frequently and we are not close. The problem is that I always felt like the odd one out, even as a child. The golden child was Rose. My parents loved her, and she did everything perfectly, straight A's, prom queen moments. In the meantime, I was the challenging, disobedient one. I got into fights, disobeyed curfews, colored my hair in outrageous hues, and more. The way Rose used to make me feel, however, was the worst. Not only would she harass me, but it seemed like she made a conscious effort to keep me out of her plans with her friends in front of me. She made sure I knew I wasn't wanted at school by spreading untruths about me. Then there was the response, or lack thereof, from my folks. They always stood behind Rose, no matter what she did. It stung a lot, and I carried that bitterness into adulthood. I recall telling them once about the things she said to me, and they dismissed it with the comment, "Oh, that's just how sisters are." However, my 29-year-old partner Joshua proposed to me approximately a month following my sister's divorce. It was among the most joyful times of my life. After all, I had been anticipating this for some time. After nearly 4 years of dating, Joshua and I had discussed marriage frequently. Therefore, it seemed as though everything was coming together when he eventually proposed. Even though my parents and I weren't particularly close, I notified them right away, of course. Perhaps, just possibly, this could be something that would unite us, I thought. Almost immediately, I went into wedding planning mode, thinking about venues, clothes, flowers, and all the other details. Sharing this time with my friends and the few members of my family that I truly get along with made me very happy. However, a few weeks later, my mother called. She told me they needed to talk to me about something significant, and she sounded serious. To be honest, my initial assumption was that it might have something to do with Rose and her entire mess after the divorce. I simply got a feeling that something bad was going to happen. So, kind of expecting the worst, I headed to their place the following evening. And sure enough, my mom revealed it as soon as I sat down. They wanted me to delay my wedding by 2 years, she informed me. Yes, 2 years, as Rose had recently gone through a divorce. What I was hearing was unbelievable. My sister's divorce caused my wedding to be postponed. I thought she must be kidding because it was so ridiculous that I briefly burst out laughing. She was dead serious though. She clarified that Rose needed time to heal and possibly find another partner because she was still devastated. It seems like my wedding would get in the way of it. I questioned my mother if she was serious as I sat there in shock. How could she possibly believe that Rose's romantic life was connected to my wedding? Rose's poor choices were intended to cause my wedding, one of the most important days of my life, to be postponed. "We are family, and we need to support each other," was the famous line my mother used to strike me. She has said this to me countless times. Always, it's about standing by Rose. They seem to want me to be this quiet, helpful person in the background who always prioritizes her needs. I was unable to control my anger. I told my mother that I couldn't believe she had the audacity to ask me such a question and that this was really absurd. Then I simply walked away. I didn't want to be there and hear more of their guilt-tripping and justifications. However, it didn't end there. Over the course of the following few days, my mother called me often to reassure me that this was the appropriate course of action and that the family as a whole, not just Rose, was at stake. She insisted on bringing up the unfairness of Rose attending my wedding while still going through her divorce. However, when was life ever fair? Just because one individual is experiencing something doesn't mean that things stop. It's not as if I'm attempting to make Rose feel unhappy. All I want is to marry Joshua and begin a life together. My dad also became involved, which surprised me because he often stays out of this kind of drama. Using Rose's current emotional state, and the fact that my wedding would be too much for her to take, he attempted to reason with me. He gave the impression that she would be severely burdened by my wedding, as though my joy would somehow make her even more unhappy. Again, though, I fail to see how it is my issue. I can't stop my life, especially to save her feelings, and I can't control how she feels. My parents continued to phone and harass me for days after that. I knew there would be more of the same guilt trip over delaying the wedding every time I saw their name appear on my phone. I must admit that I was growing impatient with them. In contrast, my sister had not spoken to me at all. I was starting to question whether this was truly what Rose desired or whether my parents were simply projecting their own problems onto me because it was all coming from them. I therefore made the decision to take matters into my own hands and give Rose a call directly after a week or so of this back and forth. At first, I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I was really calm. I questioned her directly if my parents were overreacting or if she was the one who set them up for this. At that point, she verified it. Yes, she did believe that delaying the wedding would be preferable. What was she thinking? She claimed that all of the relatives would question her about the divorce during the wedding and that she wasn't prepared for that kind of scrutiny. I was taken aback. We were discussing the wedding, which was one of the most important days of my life, even though I know divorce is a significant matter. Why should her concerns about what others might think of her take precedence over my wedding? I politely explained to her that this was my wedding and that I didn't think anyone would be bothering her about something so private at a gathering that was meant to be about Joshua and me. Let's face it, people are too preoccupied with the wedding of the couple, the cuisine, the dancing, and their personal life to pay any attention to anything else at the event. At my wedding, of all places, who is going to approach Rose and intrusively inquire about her failed marriage? Naturally, though, she refused to listen. She insisted repeatedly that she wasn't emotionally ready to deal with everyone and that if I truly cared about her, I would think about holding off until she was more resilient and able to take the attention. I became more irate the more she said. At last, I simply explained everything to her. I informed her that whether she or our parents attended or not, the wedding would take place regardless of her feelings. She was insecure about people asking her awkward questions, but I wasn't going to let that stop me from living my life. I didn't have to cope with that. She did. I immediately contacted my folks and told them the same thing once I hung up. Look, I love you all, but I'm not delaying the wedding, I remarked. It would be wonderful if you could lend me your support. If not, I can understand, but whether you are present or not, the wedding is taking place. As expected, my mother broke down in tears and said that Rose needed time to recover and that I was destroying the family. However, I had already made up my mind by then. I had no intention of giving up. 3 weeks ago, the wedding did take place. Joshua and I got married, and it was lovely. I won't lie, it was difficult to walk down the aisle by myself, even though my parents weren't there. I had dreamed about that moment all my life, and I always saw my father being there. As I approached Joshua, I could see that broad smile light up his face. I realized that I was just doing this for Joshua and myself, not for my parents, Rose, or anybody else. And to be honest, that was sufficient. I was content with my choice. My closest friends and those who genuinely support us were all around me. After the ceremony, things became a little more tricky when we arrived at the reception. The majority of my relatives, including some aunts, uncles, and cousins who had not been involved in the drama, had arrived. However, they took note. They were definitely curious when they saw that my parents weren't present. "Where are your mom and dad? Is everything okay?" People began to inquire. I was aware that I would eventually have to explain the entire complex situation. I initially made an effort to sidestep the inquiries so as not to turn the day into a family drama, but the questions kept pouring. I eventually sat down with some of my aunts and cousins and told them everything, including how my parents had insisted that I postpone the wedding, how they wanted me to put Rose's needs before of my own, and how they ultimately decided not to attend when I refused to comply. I didn't mince words. I had had enough of acting as though nothing was wrong. They responded with a mixture of amazement and incredulity. Some of them were upset on my behalf, while others were appalled that my parents would even ask such a foolish question. Being able to finally tell my side of the story felt like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. To be honest, it was nice to have some of my family members comprehend the difficulties I had been facing. More individuals heard the story as the evening wore on, and by the conclusion of the evening, it was essentially well known. Something unexpected happened instead of the criticism I had anticipated. The other members of the family began to shun my parents. It seemed as though the entire situation had made people realize how they had been treating me for years, prioritizing Rose and expecting me to always take a back seat to her. People started contacting me to offer their support, saying things like, "You did the right thing by standing your ground," and "I had no idea it was this bad." Then, something even more bizarre occurred. Our cousin, who is getting married next month, sent out an invitation to her wedding without inviting my parents. It seems that on her own special day, she didn't want that kind of hatred. That was completely unexpected, and I feel a little bad about it. However, I can't help but feel validated at the same time. I felt alienated for years, as though I was the one who was constantly making trouble or not being sympathetic enough. However, people were finally beginning to realize that perhaps, just possibly, it wasn't entirely my fault. Joshua and I took a week-long honeymoon after my wedding, and it was, quite honestly, the nicest getaway I could have ever imagined. Away from all the family drama, we traveled alone to this lovely beach resort. For the most part, I just enjoyed the silence without checking my phone. I was aware that my parents and most likely my sister would send me messages, but I was unable to handle them while on the honeymoon. It was time for us to unwind and begin this new chapter stress-free. Reality struck me hard once we returned. I made the decision to listen to the voicemails that had accumulated for a while. To be honest, I wasn't expecting what I heard. Rather than attempting to resolve the issue or simply have a polite chat, my parents' communications were rife with profanity. Among other colorful names, my mother dubbed me an entitled brat. My father spoke in a similar tone, even going so far as to say that I was destroying the family. It was really nasty, not just angry. The allegations of selfishness, the guilt trips, and the passive-aggressive comments were all too much. I initially chose to ignore the messages in the hopes that they would stop after a few days, but that didn't work out. Actually, the situation just got worse. They increased the frequency of their calls and left voicemails full of the same poison nonsense. They started contacting me via Facebook, Instagram, and email after I banned their numbers. They didn't let up. After being silent since the wedding, my sister suddenly spoke up and sent me lengthy letters accusing me of ruining the family by prioritizing Joshua and my happiness over maintaining the family's togetherness. To be honest, it was rather draining. They even began using several phone numbers at one point in order to avoid being blacklisted. After I blocked one number, they would return with another in a few hours. I had the impression that I was playing a perverse game of whack-a-mole, except that toxic family members who couldn't accept no were the moles. To be honest, I became quite irritated. When your own relatives simply won't leave you alone, what do? They would always find a way to drag me back into the drama if I attempted to stand back and concentrate on my personal life. They seemed unable to accept that I was content without them and that I no longer required their continual affirmation or approval. I discussed it with Joshua, and he has been really encouraging. He made suggestions ranging from deleting all communication to altering my phone number. However, a part of me is really torn. They're still my parents. Despite everything they've said and done, I still feel horrible for shutting them out, which makes me feel like the evil guy. However, I am aware that I cannot continue to allow them to abuse me in this manner. They refused to listen to me when I tried to explain how their actions were impacting me. My mother used classic emotional manipulation when she said things like, "You're choosing your husband over your own family. And you'll regret this when we're gone." I don't even believe they're interested in hearing my side of the story at this time. It seems as though they are merely trying to regain control over me because they are angry that I have deviated from their authority and are making every effort to entice me back. To be honest, I don't know what to do. A part of me feels that I should just stop talking to them altogether, change my phone number, remove them from social media, and stop communicating altogether. I'll regret it though, according to this persistent voice at the back of my head. That one day I'll regret how I handled things, or that perhaps, just possibly, they'll change their ways and see how poisonous their actions have been. Let's face it though, how likely is that to actually occur? They won't alter based on what I've observed thus far. If anything, they appear to be stepping up their efforts, claiming that I have betrayed them by defending myself. I can't continue to live this way, always being cautious and anticipating the next round of messages filled with guilt. I need some guidance, Reddit. What can I do to make this stop at last? Has anyone else experienced the same thing with family members that would not quit bothering them? How did you respond to it? Is avoiding touch the ideal course of action in this situation, or is there a medium ground that I haven't considered yet? They just won't go away, even though I feel like I've tried everything. My family seems intent on keeping me stuck in this cycle of duty and guilt, even though I want to go on with my life and concentrate on my marriage. I would appreciate any guidance. First update. Hello everyone. I thought I'd give you some further history on my family dynamic because many of you have been inquiring about my childhood. To be honest, there isn't a particularly noteworthy incident or time that made me understand my family wasn't supporting me. The fact that I was growing up in a home where I didn't feel understood or supported emotionally came to me more gradually. It's difficult to explain without coming across as ungrateful because, in theory, my parents fulfilled their obligations. I had clothes and food, attended school, and occasionally had family holidays. However, I never experienced genuine affection or value. My parents were always far more concerned about my older sister, Rose, when I was growing up. Not in the conventional sense of older sibling gets more responsibility. It seemed to them that I was the one who caused difficulty, the one they had to put up with, and Rose was innocent. When I tried to show them something I was enthusiastic about or bring home good marks, they would give me a half-hearted, "That's nice, Lexi," before going on to whatever Rose needed. I was only there, but she was always the focus of their attention. As a child, it's difficult to describe how alienating it is to be ignored and treated as though you're invisible. And that happened more than once. Throughout my early years, that pattern kept coming up. I believe I was 16 years old when I got into a heated argument with some of my school pals. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, one of those things that happens to teenagers. I cried when I got home, looking for some consolation or even some guidance. While a, "hey, it'll be okay" moment would have been nice, I'm not claiming I was expecting a full-on therapy session. Rather, my dad stated, quite literally, "You probably brought it on yourself. You should learn to pick better friends." When I told my parents about it, just blame, no embrace, no support. In the meantime, they would stop everything to assist Rose in resolving any problem she might have brought home. In addition, let's take a moment to discuss Rose. She wasn't exactly the epitome of an older sister who was helpful. In actuality, she essentially made it her mission to ruin my life whenever she could. She had a small group of pals who were all as conceited as she was, and they found it amusing to harass me. They would do things like hide my belongings, tease me about my attire, or even prank phone the house and say horrible things about me while posing as classmates. It was the sort of thing that, although it seems ridiculous now, seriously damaged my self-esteem when I was younger. What's the worst? My parents were aware of it. "She's just teasing you, Lexi. It's normal sibling stuff," people would respond when I explained what Rose was doing. But I never thought it was usual. When I was around 13, there was one really awful occurrence. I was persuaded to play a game of makeover with Rose and her friends. I should have known better, but I went along with it because I was so anxious for my sister's approval or attention. I looked like a clown when they applied makeup to my face in the most absurd way imaginable. Then, without my knowledge, they snapped photos and distributed them to classmates. Everyone laughed at me the following day. No reprimand for Rose, no pity for me, just the same old thing with an attitude. When I came home crying, my parents just responded, "It's just a joke, don't be so sensitive." In retrospect, I saw that these served as the foundation for my current relationship, or lack thereof, with my family. I worked for years to gain their acceptance and convince them that I was deserving of their love and care. However, it never succeeded. They didn't care about me or what I was going through since they were too preoccupied with Rose and her issues. To be honest, I believe that's the reason I've grown into the person I am now. Someone who has learned to be self-reliant and to defend myself when necessary. Because of this, I had previously felt disappointed by my family when the wedding situation arose. It was only the decisive moment. I had been the afterthought, the second choice, for years. It felt like the last straw when they requested that I postpone my wedding for Rose's sake. They seemed to have learnt nothing from the several instances in which they prioritized her above me. They wanted me to continue playing the part I had always played, which was the one who put the family's togetherness ahead of her happiness. However, I was no longer able to accomplish it. To be honest, it feels like a big relief that I finally made the decision to choose myself. That's the main idea of my early years, then. There was a great deal of emotional neglect and favoritism that left its impact, but nothing particularly dramatic. I've taken a while to come to terms with the fact that I can prioritize my needs and that I don't have to put up with toxic behavior just because someone is family. Now that I have Joshua, we are creating our own small family where I feel respected, loved, and supported. Things I didn't really experience as a child. Thank you for reading, and thank you to everyone who has contacted me with good comments and suggestions. It has a lot of meaning. I'm coming to see that, even with family, it's acceptable to establish limits. Even if it's difficult, I know I'm acting in my own best interests. Second update. Hello everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, so I wanted to offer you all some updates. Unsurprisingly, my folks discovered a new method to irritate me around a week after Joshua and I returned from our honeymoon. I received a message from them requesting that I come pick up my childhood belongings on Sunday since they wanted them out of their home. I was pretty well over it by then, but the message was sudden and cold. I assumed I would simply go get my belongings and be done with it. I tried not to make a big deal out of it, so I simply said, "Okay," in response. However, what I witnessed when I drove there with Joshua for support was beyond absurd. My entire belongings were already on the grass, stacked like a garage sale that nobody was interested in purchasing. And not simply tucked away either. Everything appeared to have been thrown out carelessly, as though it had been left there for hours or perhaps days. Some of my old books were wet from being in the morning dew, and several of my old clothes and toys looked like they had been on the grass for a long time. Things I genuinely cared about, like emotional treasures and old photo albums, had some water stains on them. My belongings were merely collateral damage, as if they were eager to get rid of me. I was enraged. Who, after all, does that? It was about the obvious contempt, not even about the items. Even though I was furious, I knew they were waiting for me to lose it, to scream, to cry, or to demand answers. It was as if they were sending a message that said, "We're done with you." From the window, I could almost see my mother waiting for me to respond. And to be honest, I wasn't going to satisfy them. I so maintained my composure rather than losing it. With composure, I turned to Joshua and requested him to assist me in packing the truck. We didn't knock on the door, talk to my parents, or ask for an explanation. Silently, we simply loaded the truck. Joshua helped me finish it without saying anything, but I believe he could tell I was holding back a lot. It was strange, though, since I became aware of something while we were packing everything up. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't devastated or heartbroken. All I felt was relief. To completely end the chapter of my connection with my parents, this was the last thing I needed. Strangely enough, it felt significant when they threw out my belongings in that manner. It seemed as though they were at last making it clear to me that I was no longer wanted in their lives. I no longer felt upset, but rather liberated from the guilt trips, the emotional games, and the continual pressure to fit in with a family that never truly made room for me. To be honest, I was more than willing to let it go since it felt like they were cutting the last tie. Third update. Hi everyone. Even though it's been a few months, I had to tell you all about something crazy that happened. So, do you recall Rose, my sister? The same sister that couldn't make it to my wedding because she was too depressed and grieved after her divorce. Yes, she is getting married the next week. I'm not making this up, I promise. In fewer than 7 days, the lady who said it took her at least 2 years to move on and find a new man will walk down the aisle. The irony is excessive. Do you know how I learned about it? It came from one of our cousins, not from her or my parents, who haven't spoken to me since the wedding fiasco. She forwarded me a screen grab of their social media engagement announcement. I was at home taking care of business when all of a sudden there was Rose, looking cheerful and in love, flashing her ring to her new fiancé as if the drama of the previous year had never occurred. I had to chuckle. I couldn't even be mad. At this point, it's really funny. Even stranger is the fact that neither Rose nor my parents have mentioned the situation at all. Nothing. I quietly left after discovering my wife's affair after 3.5 years of marriage. A year later, my ghosted ex-wife tracked me down. After hearing of my wife's adultery, I moved to the hills. I'm not sure why I'm writing this, but perhaps it will be helpful to someone now that the incident is over and I've moved on. After 3.5 years of marriage, I learned of my wife's affair in February 2018. I worked a contract job that occasionally required a lot of travel but also permitted me to work from home when I returned. As a director of a technical sales company, my wife held a very lucrative position. Although things had become a little strained due to her working longer and longer hours and me traveling for work, we still had what I would call a fairly excellent marriage. Background: 5 years ago, at a cookout hosted by a mutual acquaintance, I met my wife, who is now my ex. We immediately clicked after we started talking. To be honest, I felt that being with a woman who was so attractive and articulate was a huge advantage. My rough around the edges demeanor somehow appealed to her. After a few weeks of dating, we found ourselves smitten with one another. When we would meet at each other's apartments, the clothes simply flew off. After 18 months of dating, we eventually got married and moved into a large apartment while saving for a down payment on a home. Things began to change after the first 3 years of marriage. Even though I still had feelings for her, I noticed that she would argue over little matters. When I mentioned all the late hours and the increasingly regular work outings, she would grow irate. Since she had been moving up the corporate ladder, she would claim that it was a necessary component of paying the dues. At least that was her justification. She informed me that since I was also away for weeks at a time, I had no right to challenge her. In reality, I had only been taking vacations for 3 or 4 days every 5 weeks or so I assured her that I could definitely manage cutting back on my travel time. There was never a conclusion to these highly circular arguments. Looking back, I realized that I was unaware that my wife was having an affair. Aside from our declining sexual life and her persistently late work hours, I would never have suspected anything. I simply assumed that she was exhausted from her job. But being rejected so often when I tried to start a sexual relationship had taken a toll on my ego. Although she had a work mobile phone and might have been using it, I didn't witness the covert texting that I had read about in other articles. She used our spare bedroom as a home office and spent a lot of time there. Around September 2017, Kathy began returning home from work and spending the evening at a work engagement instead. This increased from 1 night per week to over 3 nights each week. Although I'm not naturally envious, she would undoubtedly be observed by others, and I'm aware that she would need to repel some of the males at her workplace. Despite working with more male CEOs than female ones, she gave off the impression that she was primarily engaged in her job. The first time I suspected she was cheating was a month prior to D-Day. Before returning home, she had made a brief stop at the supermarket. I was asked to assist her with the grocery shopping. Something pink was glinting from just beneath the front passenger seat of her automobile as I was retrieving a few items from the rear seat. It was a bra that belonged to my wife. She preferred ones from a certain clothing store, so I knew it was hers. Looking back, I can see the bra was a warning sign. She always removes her bra first, from under her clothes, when she's feeling very lustful. I'm not sure why, but when I watched this, I felt sick to my stomach right away. I couldn't understand why her bra was beneath the seat. I didn't say anything more. My heart must have been pounding so hard that I nearly passed out, because when I brought the bags back to the kitchen, Kathy asked me how I was feeling and said that I appeared to have seen a ghost. I simply ignored her remark. It took everything I had to conceal my emotions, but I did my best not to appear upset or deceived. I made the decision to try to find out whether or not she was seeing someone that night and the following day. I began to consider all the hints I could have overlooked. Other than the bra, I had no evidence. She works in an office building downtown, and we live in a reasonably big city. I made the decision to temporarily put the affair idea out of my mind and consider giving her more of my attention. I prepared a delicious meal and arranged the dining table with elegant plates, silverware, and candles one Friday after work. I purchased an arrangement of flowers and a lovely bottle of wine. I pointed out the dinner and everything I had made when she arrived as usual, breezing in after work. She apologized and said she was sorry, but she had to go to a neighborhood hangout to meet up with her coworkers. She mentioned that she needed to take a shower first but that she could have a small snack with me before she left. I guess I went utterly silent because my insides flipped on me. I won't explain the type of anger I was experiencing at the time, but I had had enough. I took my work cell phone and threw it in her back seat while she was taking a shower. I had been considering this as a means of using my own phone to find her. I walked into the kitchen after that and threw the food and flowers in the garbage. After taking a shower, she got ready and looked stunning as always. "All right, let's eat," she said. "Never mind, go out with your friends," I urged her. She asked me if I was angry after giving me a weird look. "I'm sad that you never want to do anything with me," I said. She got upset and sarcastically remarked on my short fuse while telling me to stop acting like a kid. I muttered, "Foolish me," as I stood there allowing everything to settle in. For once, I felt we should spend the evening together. She simply gave me a sly smile and stormed off. I pulled out my second phone and began following my work phone when she departed. About 20 minutes away, at the bar she often visits with her coworkers, I caught her stopping. I made the decision to go find her automobile. Indeed, it was in the parking lot of the bar. I waited to see if I could see her in my car across the street. I felt completely different, like a stalker, but I told myself that I had to calm my fear of her whereabouts. I observed her leaving the bar with a man about an hour after I got there. He had the appearance of an executive from her company. He took hold of her, drew her near, and planted a kiss on her lips. My body was totally numb, and my stomach started to clench up. They went to a different vehicle and climbed in together. When their automobile pulled out, I tried to keep up with them. You guessed it, they drove to a hotel 10 minutes away. As I stopped on the street beside the hotel, I saw them exit, holding hands, and enter. I'd seen enough. I felt foolish. I began pounding the steering wheel with my fist. That was it? Something went totally blank inside of me. I'm not sure if I had an out-of-body experience or blacked out, but as I got better, I felt like I wanted a drink. At this point, my life started on a path I never would have imagined. I simply began to drive out of town, replaying all that I had just seen. I was crying out of anger, as much as I hate to admit it. I located a pleasant little tavern on the outskirts of town, some 30 miles away, and stopped in. I ordered a drink while seated at the bar. The bartender, a lady, said that I looked like someone had taken the wind out of my sails, so I guess I looked like death warmed over. I answered, half smiling. "You could say that." A man sat down beside me and struck up a discussion. Even though I didn't feel like talking, there was something about this guy that put me at ease. We struck up a conversation, and eventually my wife's infidelity came up. I told her that all I wanted to do was get away from her and forget about her. "You're not alone, buddy," he replied, giving me a back pat after giving me a quick glance. "I experienced that a few years ago. I think there's a reason why these things occur. Your life can now take a positive or negative turn, I assure you. At this point, everything is totally up to you." His remarks, for some reason, jolted me out of my gloom. Even though I was aware of my pain, I've always been able to see things rationally, and he was absolutely correct. We identified ourselves. Ray was his name. I really liked his salt-of-the-earth vibe, even though he was more of a country guy. "When are you going to move out?" he inquired. I suppose I never thought to look that far ahead. I had a fight-or-flight response going on, and I knew I didn't want to be around this woman any longer. "I have an idea and I feel very sympathetic to your situation," Ray added. "When the time comes, I have a mobile trailer on my land in case you feel the need to go. It might require some work and isn't very good. Why don't you visit and see if you could imagine yourself briefly residing in anything like that? I'll give you a terrific bargain on it, at least. You could even park it on a lovely piece of property I own. I would appreciate it if you could watch it for me. It could be beneficial to escape your predicament, just a thought." I took a moment to comprehend his concept. "Hell, honey, if I could have escaped my crazy ex-husband years ago, I would have jumped at the chance to go live in his trailer or anything just to get my head on straight," added the bartender, who had been listening in on the chat. Perhaps this was just what I needed, but I felt as though I had wandered into the twilight zone. "Yes, I'll think about it and maybe check it out," I said to Ray. After a while, we split up and agreed to get together at his house in a few days. I began to feel as though I had some perspective and an opportunity to escape what I thought was a terrible heartache combined with a nightmare. I knew one thing for sure: I would never, ever want to spend time with my wife again. I find cheating to be so disgusting, and it has always been the one thing I thought I would never put up with. I sat on the couch when I arrived home that evening after Kathy. Kathy asked me where I had been when she came out. "Where have you been?" I questioned, turning to face her. "You know I went to grab drinks," she said. I directly inquired, "Are you having an affair?" She appeared surprised, but she soon collected herself and responded, "No, why would you ask me that?" I informed her that I had heard she might be seeing someone at work. "Who told you that?" she said. "Someone I know," I said, but I kept the name a secret. After saying, "You're being ridiculous," she accused me of being intoxicated and insane and inquired about my whereabouts. "We're going to a bar to enjoy some drinks with our friends," I remarked. Despite her obvious desire to ask more questions, she returned to our bedroom and went to bed. Now that I had proof that she had been deceiving me for months, I made the decision to sleep on the sofa. I couldn't sleep at all because I kept seeing her in bed with this guy. I felt sorry for myself, disgusted, and hurt. But then I thought about Ray's trailer. The thought of it cheered me up, and it was almost like a revelation. Something must be wrong with me since the fight or flight response automatically activated amid the pain I was experiencing, and I preferred the flight response. We didn't talk much the following morning and carried on with the weekend as if nothing had occurred. I scheduled a meeting with Ray a few days later. I noticed that Ray had a lovely ranch when I got there, and the trailer was actually quite nice, about 26 feet long and fully furnished. It brought back memories of a fun spring break trip I took with pals while I was in college. Ray accepted the money I offered him for the trailer. To be honest, I almost took it from him. I drove over to see his ranch property after he gave me directions. There were hiking and biking paths close by, and the area was lovely, with lots of trees and scrub vegetation. Ray had a little cabin on a hilltop overlooking the property, with electricity and water accessible for the trailer, and it was close to the foothills of some mountains. Ray promised to set up the trailer for me and pull it to the location. I tried to get Kathy to come clean over the course of the following few weeks, but all I got was gaslighting. I even bluntly warned her that there would be no turning back if I discovered she was cheating. As a result, she became even more engrossed in her affair fog, and began to lash out at me with denials. I nearly laughed at how awful the denial was. I scolded myself for not capturing pictures of the two of them, and I had no tangible evidence that she had cheated. I decided that I wanted to leave this marriage after going through this emotional anguish. Instead of communicating my feelings to Kathy, I simply began planning. While she was at work, I started quietly removing my possessions from the apartment and transferring them to the trailer. At least I felt like I was doing something about it. I saw a difference in Kathy during this period. Although she had been behaving more politely toward me, I believed it was too little, too late. I felt I needed a break too, so she kept going on company outings, after work. One night, I got ready too, just as she was leaving. After glancing at me, she inquired about my destination. All I said was, meeting up with some friends. You wouldn't enjoy all the shop talk, and you don't know them? I interrupted her as she began to ask more questions. She used to say precisely this to me whenever I asked if I might accompany her on office excursions. All right, have a good time, she added, with a somewhat offended expression. I definitely will, I replied. I began making new acquaintances while working on the trailer and hanging out with Ray at the bar. I felt better after spending time with Ray's wonderful family and friends. I also made the decision to cut back on my drinking because I didn't want to form any unhealthy habits. I knew better than to drown myself in sympathy, even though it would have been so simple. At this point, Kathy informed me that the next week she would be traveling for work. She stated the executive team and a few department heads were going when I inquired who was going. I hope you have a great time with your boyfriend, I added, glancing at her. I immediately regretted saying that because it sparked a furious argument. Although, as Ray had informed me, it didn't really matter, I now regret not knowing more about her affair partner, AP. It doesn't matter who the other guy is, Ray replied. The fact that she chose to leave you is all that matters. She destroyed the marriage. Whether she admits it or not, brother, facts are facts. Ray ought to write a book for the betrayed. Damn it. I had the ideal opportunity to move out entirely during Kathy's work vacation. When she was gone, I collected everything valuable that was mine, including clothes, laptops, and equipment. I didn't take any shared goods or furniture. I left a note before I left. It was a lengthy explanation at first, but I chose to make it brief. I wrote, I hope it was worth it on a piece of paper. On top of the note on the kitchen table, I set my wedding ring. I felt like a great weight had been lifted as I left. I was liberated. The hurt would take time to heal, and there would be baggage to cope with, but I had started. I needed time to myself and to swiftly and quietly get rid of her. The fact that I hadn't challenged her or coerced a confession didn't make me proud. I hadn't screamed or shouted. She didn't deserve it, in my opinion. She disregarded everything we owned, including our plans for the future, our aspirations for a home and a family, and now it was all gone. There was no turning back. I owed her absolutely nothing. She could handle the consequences. I hadn't planned anything or called a lawyer. I just wanted a new beginning and some clarity. The air from the mountains was just what I needed when I got inside my trailer. I resumed running the next week, and it was wonderful to be alive. Kathy texted things like, "We just landed," "We're having a team dinner," and so on while she was away. "Where are you?" was the question in a few mails. "Why haven't you gotten back to me?" I didn't answer. My phone exploded with calls and texts when she got home. She kept trying to get in touch with me, but I ignored her. Her mother also tried to phone me after the first day, but I didn't pick up. She didn't try to engage my father because we aren't close and he is the only member of my family that I still have. Her messages grew more urgent after she was ignored for a week. "What is this?" was one of the texts she sent. "We must speak. I'm not sure what you believe you know, but nothing is happening. There isn't an affair going on." She finally texted me after a week of not answering, saying, "I'm sorry things got out of hand. It didn't matter that I was involved with someone at work. You were absent a lot while I was preoccupied with my work. I simply made an error. I intended to terminate it." An error? I had been waiting for this confession all along, yet somehow it only made me detest her more. Why was she unable to be truthful? I didn't have any dreams about a future with this woman. Errors don't persist for 6, 8, or a year. Her pleas for me to return and work on the marriage eventually grew pitiful. I refused to respond to her even after she stopped bothering me for a few weeks. I didn't want her to learn where I lived or to snoop around in my life. I didn't want my haven to be destroyed by this woman. She then began sending nasty texts like, "You're a coward one day. You refuse to speak to me. You have no regard for us. Come home, please, so we can discuss. You're where? I am able to visit you. Paul, please let's chat and make things right. Damn it." Although I don't recall all of the texts, they all appeared to be excuses with minimal genuine regret. In one ear, I let them go, and in the other out. After a while, I switched my mobile number. Update: June 2018. I received an email from Kathy informing me that she had hired a lawyer and was going to file for divorce. I just said, "Okay, that sounds good." This led to a barrage of emails requesting that I visit her and other things. She wrote that she would stop bothering me if I consented to an uncontested divorce after realizing this wouldn't work. After I consented, I was genuinely free a few months later. After I moved out of our apartment, I never had to see her again. She seemed to care more about that than I did, even though neither of us had any closure. I would occasionally think of her for a few months, and yes, the grief would suddenly come to me, like when I heard a song we used to enjoy. After a while though, I simply stopped thinking about her. Update 2. Now that I'm officially divorced, things are going great. In actuality, I got to know a wonderful girl. Just down the hill from my house, I was running on the trail. We clicked when I helped her replace a flat tire. Despite being a few years younger than me, she is fantastic and quite adorable. She refers to me as her mountain man, and adores my way of life. Although I'm not in a rush to commit, I also don't intend to give up on women entirely. I have no intention of moving out of the trailer anytime soon. I enjoy being outside and have simplified my life. It made everything easier for me, including the grief and my ex-wife. I am aware that everyone responds to these situations in a unique way. I was fortunate to be in my 3rd year of marriage and not yet a parent. I believe I acted in my own best interests. You don't have to spend your entire life with someone who cheats. If you experience something similar, try not to think about it too much. Continue living your life. As you improve yourself, it will get better. I hope everyone has the finest possible life. I've revised this roughly 5 times to make it readable, and I just wanted to give you an update on my ex-wife's condition. I was worried that my ex-wife was attempting to find me, as I indicated in my earlier post. I left our previous residence, which was around 2 hours away. I ran into her last weekend at a coffee shop I often visit in the town close to my home. It didn't seem like a coincidence to me. Fortunately, I managed to get away before she noticed me. 3rd update, I went into town this past weekend to get groceries and made a stop at my normal coffee establishment. I was utilizing their free internet to work on some paperwork for work. I finished and walked out of the coffee shop. I was on my way to my pickup when I heard someone shout, "Paul!" When I turned to look across the street, I saw Kathy. I was being waved at by my ex-wife. Finally, Armageddon had arrived. She hurried across the street toward me, and I stood there in disbelief. As though anticipating an embrace, she walked over and extended her hand. I stopped her in her tracks by instinctively holding out my arms with my palms up. She appeared to be in severe pain. Then she added, "I've been searching for you, Paul. I've wanted to see you since I heard you moved here. Can we have a conversation?" Guys, I felt like an animal confined in a cage. Yes, I did. "All right, let's find a table or something and we can talk for a minute," I finally gave in. When she asked if we could come to my house, I firmly refused. At the end of the street, she trailed me down to a bench outside a small store. She began by remarking on how much I had changed and how much she liked my new appearance, beard, and level of fitness. She raved about how much my body had changed. Wearing a tank top, small white shorts, and her hair in a ponytail, just like I used to enjoy, she was really putting on the charm. I had my radar set high. She was clearly attempting to activate the sex appeal. I needed to control myself so I could see where this was headed. She began by saying she was sorry about the affair. She claimed that after I left, karma had severely impacted her. When her employer learned of the affair, the situation became so tense that she eventually resigned. Her affair partner AP, who at the time was engaged, received criticism and was transferred to a different department within the organization. She replied by telling his fiancé the truth after he blamed her for everything, which caused them to split up. This is when she bowed her head and began to weep. I didn't say anything, I just sat there and looked around. She stood up straight and looked at me for a while. "What do you want from me?" I asked. She assured me that she had no intention of having an affair. She stated that the company's politics and positioning drew her in, and that her AP used his charm and influence to corrupt her. She acknowledged that she felt she was taking advantage of him as much as he was taking advantage of her. After I accused her of cheating, she stated that she intended to come clean. She drank after work to ease the guilt she felt at the moment because she loathed herself. She claimed that she felt so stupid, so alone, and as like her heart had burst with loss immediately after I departed. She ended her relationship with her AP right away. She believed she had to find me to see if there was any chance of reconciliation because I refused to speak with her or get in touch with her. She desired a fresh start. She hoped we could start afresh even though she knew we were divorced. I simply gazed at her. I then gave it to her. "You have no right to come out here and undo all the harm you have done. Do you think I'll overlook everything you did to destroy our union? As I previously stated, we were done if you cheated. Forgiveness does not exist. This relationship will not be restarted. You murdered it. As soon as you left me, you ruined everything we had. How foolish do you believe me to be? One evening, I watched you enter a hotel with him. Were you aware of that?" I became aware that people were beginning to notice that my voice had been getting louder. She grabbed my arm and started crying. After letting her sob on my shoulder for a while, I pushed her away. I deserve all this, she replied, glancing up at me. I am certain that I do. If nothing else, would you allow me to take you out to dinner? I'd rather not go. I would like to speak further. I want to make sure that we are transparent about everything. You need to spend more time with me than you have in the past. Paul, please. I love you so much, even though I know you might not want to hear it. Before you left me, I had no idea how much I loved you. You broke me as much as I broke you. I'm unable to forgive myself, and I don't want to do so till the day I pass away. She began to sob uncontrollably and hyperventilate. I lifted her up and gave her a hug. It seemed like my only option for soothing her. I knew then that I had shattered her heart as severely as she had shattered mine. Walking, we found a peaceful spot to carry on our conversation. I said, "How did you find me?" when she had calmed down. "Have you engaged a private investigator?" After giving it some thought, she responded no with a small giggle. She clarified that she asked how things were going when she ran into Stacy a few weeks prior. Stacy didn't mention that she had noticed me. Kathy forced her to reveal all the information. I had warned Stacy not to tell her, so she was reluctant, but Kathy persisted. Stacy finally gave in, but all she knew was that I lived somewhere close by and was in town. On her days off, she began to come here to check on me. I kind of laughed when she said that, thinking, damn, Stacy can't keep her trap shut. She blushed. We ultimately decided to have dinner at a charming little spot with a patio. I made sure we didn't drink anything since I wasn't going to give her a reason to be kind to me or say she wasn't so inebriated that she couldn't drive back. In fact, we had a good conversation. I then escorted her to her vehicle. She insisted that she hadn't dated anyone else since I left and vowed fervently that I was the only person she wanted, so she pushed me hard to stay longer. "No, it's still way too early for me to go down that road," I informed her. She pleaded with me to come back, but I didn't say yes. After giving her my new email address, I didn't say anything more. My response to her request for my phone number was, "You'll just blow it up with texts and calls." She wept over it, but in the end, she agreed with my choice. She promised to send me an email with information on returning to town the following weekend before she left. I asked her directly, "Would you have forgiven me if I had been the one cheating?" before she got into her car. "Yes, in time, but only if we saw a marriage counselor and worked through the healing process with lots of talking, maybe even a binding agreement," she responded after pausing to reflect. "All right, maybe I could do that. In 5 or 10 years, I answered. "I would wait if that's what it would take," she replied. She then took both of my hands in hers, looked me in the eye and said, "God damn it, Paul, I will always love you and will do anything to prove it." This statement truly caught me off guard. Her remarks continued to upset me even after she left. She had spoken those words so firmly. However, I was still unable to envision us reuniting. Even though I felt better about the incident, I was unable to perceive her as a friend at this time. Perhaps a friend, but even that was a mystery. I returned home, enjoyed a long run, had some beer, and thought about how far I had come. Could someone please assure me that she wouldn't destroy the tranquility I had created for myself? I had no idea. I had the luxury of time to sort through it and get perspective, but it was all still too vivid in my mind. Last update. Most likely, this will be my final update. When I first uploaded my story to Reddit, the moderators kept taking it down. In summary, I ghosted my ex-wife for more than a year before she discovered me. She wanted to make amends and start over with us. You will be deeply disappointed if you thought I would be the typical beta blue pill fool, and forgive her. She expressed her love and regret for the affair in a lengthy email she sent me last week. She offered to come out and stay with me for the weekend once more. My answer? I silenced her. I informed her that I had no plans to make amends with her. I'm totally happy living alone, taking advantage of my secluded position, and keeping things simple. At 32, I'm not in a rush to make changes. I have my own self-determination plan and have enjoyed the company of a few women and friends. I made it clear in my email response that I had no intention of reconciling and declined to provide her with my phone number. I no longer know or trust you because you made your bed. I hope the best for you, and perhaps we might become friends in the future, but not right now. She was annoyed by my evasiveness and responded in a telling way. She acknowledged that she had taken a job offer from a different state. Her true goal had been for me to accompany her, believing that my remote work would make the move simple. She wished we could start over somewhere new. She wanted to visit me in person to attempt to persuade me because she was running out of time before moving. Luckily for me, her time was up because I had a week of business travel scheduled. I'm grateful. I will no longer have her in my life. She will soon recognize that her time with me is over, but I anticipate receiving a few more emails. She'll need to find someone else, and she might even cheat on them. To anyone reading this, make the most of your life. Let go of the past and give yourself the strength to go on. To all of you, good luck. Entitled Mom Tries to Force Me to Sell My Property for Her Daughter's College and Escalates When I Refuse. I possess $34 million worth of real estate in our hometown, including a number of homes. Years of arduous labor, prudent financial decisions, and self-sacrificing actions have led to this. For background, I'm from a modest family. Both of my parents worked in blue-collar jobs and put in a lot of effort to give my siblings and I a decent upbringing. Although it was out of their price range, they had always hoped to own their own home. Their upbringing stoked my desire and strengthened my resolve to improve my family's quality of living. My wife and I were in college when we first met. Raised by a single mother who worked several jobs to make ends meet, my wife's family had similar experiences. She became aware of the importance of ingenuity and financial caution. Both of us aspired to overcome financial difficulties and provide a secure future for our kids. Over the years, my wife and I have been buying and flipping residences nonstop. We gradually accumulated a number of properties by carefully investing and saving every cent. Every property stood for years of toil, innumerable sacrifices, and a common goal between us. I am now the father of a son and a girl, two amazing children. In addition to being a source of revenue, our properties serve as a testament to our commitment to providing for our kids' futures. I had no idea that an entitled woman named Emily, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, who has been one of my tenants for a few years, would soon cause my life to take an unexpected turn. She lives in a cozy 3-bedroom home that I bought years ago, before I married my wife, after careful saving. Her daughter's high school is adjacent to the property, which is situated in a desirable area of the city. After their daughter was born, Emily's husband abruptly left her, leaving her a single mother. I gave her subsidized rent to allow her to move in after learning about her situation. I wanted her and her daughter to be able to afford to live there, even though I knew I would lose out financially. The rent has stayed the same over the years, and I have never raised it. Emily had consistently paid her rent on time, making her a dependable tenant. Our relationship as landlord and tenant became informal, and we occasionally stayed in touch when she needed my assistance around the property. Her daughter was a senior in high school and getting ready to submit a college application. Emily told me 3 months ago that her daughter was admitted to a renowned out-of-state university, which is an incredible accomplishment for any high school graduate. Unfortunately, her scholarship didn't even cover 10% of her tuition at this incredibly costly university. I was concerned about how they would handle the financial challenges of higher education because I was aware of them. Emily asked to meet me one day. Without much hesitation, I accepted, assuming it had something to do with the necessary house renovations. As we sat down in the house's living room, she began by expressing her gratitude for my generosity in providing her with a large portion of the rent. She went on to tell me how much she wanted Lily, her daughter, to go to the university of her dreams. But after calculating the costs, which included accommodation, tuition, and other charges, she found that it was too much for her to manage by herself. Even after applying for financial aid, researching scholarships, and taking a part-time job in addition to her full-time employment, it was still insufficient. Perhaps she was going to ask if she could postpone paying the rent for the month, which would have made sense, so I shook my head firmly in understanding. Rather, I was flabbergasted by Emily's astounding desire for me. She requested that I sell the house where she was residing. As she went on to explain that the property I owned and had rented out to her would bring in a healthy profit, enabling her to pay for her daughter's college education, I gave her a questioning glance. "Are you serious?" With a mixture of surprise and incredulity, I replied. "You want me to sell my property to pay for your daughter's college tuition?" Emily argued that it was her one chance to ensure her daughter's future, and her eyes begged me to do so. She said she was sure the entire property could pay for her daughter's college expenses because she had already had it evaluated. Since I couldn't possibly sell my house to pay for her daughter's tuition at a prestigious university, I asked her if she had gone insane. I informed her that I had sentimental attachment to this house and that I would not be selling it for nothing. Once more, Emily persisted, claiming that I could lend her the money and that her daughter would reimburse me after graduating. I knew how important a college education was, yet I refused to give in to her ridiculous demands. It was evident from listening to her entreaties that she was committed to finding a method to support her daughter's aspirations, even if it required proposing an absurd idea to an unfamiliar person. I calmly told Emily that I couldn't just give up the property because it was a big portion of my income. I should not be responsible for her daughter's tuition. I advised her to look into more cheap possibilities or ask family members for assistance if she was unable to pay for her daughter's tuition at the institution. Emily persisted in pressing the matter in spite of my attempts to persuade her to see the obvious, claiming that I was the only person who could assist and that selling my property and giving her the money wasn't a huge concern. I asked Emily not to come to me about this ever again, and when I realized it was not working, I left the property. I asked her to consider how ridiculous her request sounded and come up with an alternative. I had hoped that she would ultimately see her error, but Emily persisted throughout the following few weeks. The situation grew more intolerable as Emily's daughter was getting closer to starting college. Emily persuaded me daily to sell my property as quickly as possible, even though I denied it. She even protested by ceasing to pay her rent. As Emily persisted in her conviction that my property would solve her financial problems, our formerly cordial relationship deteriorated and our tension increased. She believed that my refusal endangered her daughter's future and was self-serving. However, because she was refusing to pay her rent, I was losing money. We had an unbreakable pact, so I told her that if she didn't comply, I would take the case to court. It was becoming more and more obvious that her demands were endless. When Emily began bringing other people into our argument, it was a tipping point. She spoke to her neighbors and friends, accusing me of being a callous landlord who would not assist a young girl in achieving her goals. She emphasized her position as a struggling single mother and informed them that although I was quite affluent, I would not lend her the money. Those she confided in sympathized with her story. Emily used social media to further her cause, posting on Facebook that she blamed me for her daughter's failure to go to college. Rumors soon began to spread throughout our area. People understood her predicament and believed that I could help but was purposefully refusing to. I couldn't help but feel alienated in my own neighborhood. At last, my wife made the decision to contact Emily in order to resolve the growing dispute. She thought that open communication would be a way to resolve the growing tension in the neighborhood, but Emily wasn't in the mood for a quiet conversation. She went on a rant right away, claiming that the only way she could ensure her daughter's future was for me, the landlord, to sell the house. My wife made sincere attempts to persuade Emily, but her conviction remained unwavering. She accused us of being self-centered and claimed that we had the money to pay for her daughter's college tuition. Emily persisted in pressuring my wife to comply with her requests, and the talk went on in a monotonous loop. Her message had a visible effect on the neighborhood and the local community, portraying me as a wealthy and callous landlord who would not assist a young girl in realizing her aspirations. We were viewed with suspicion by those neighbors who had previously been friends with us. They started to think that, although I was consciously refusing to do so out of selfishness, I did have the capacity to lessen her daughter's financial problems. Others who understood my background, my diligence, and the truth of my circumstances agreed with me and were equally horrified by Emily's bold request that I pay for it. They served as a reminder to me that I had to safeguard my assets and uphold the legacy I had worked so hard to establish. Every day, the community grew further polarized, with some people feeling sorry for Emily. I remained firm in my resolve to defend my property in the face of increasing pressure. I had worked hard and made sacrifices for years to earn it, and I wasn't about to give it up easily. Emily, meantime, kept stoking the fire by accusing me of being uncaring and taking advantage of her by letting her live for free. Her statements on social media grew more outspoken as she talked about her daughter's perseverance and the innumerable sacrifices she had made in order to become ready for college. Consequently, the argument progressed from a private dispute to a public discussion. My family was beginning to feel the effects of the accusations. As a result of their peers repeating the untrue things they had seen on social media about me, my children started to be bullied at school. Seeing how distressed they were by this circumstance was awful. I made the decision that it was time to act at that point. Since Emily was affecting my children, I had remained silent, believing that she would ultimately cease, but it was time to correct the record and stand up for my morals. I contacted a lawyer that focused on tenant-landlord disputes and property disputes. In order to stop Emily's defamatory efforts and preserve my reputation in the community, we quickly wrote a cease and desist letter. According to my lawyer, the cease and desist letter was the beginning of our legal struggle, and we would go all the way to court if Emily didn't change her mind. Emily was obviously shocked to receive the letter. She tried calling me on the phone, but I declined to take her calls. Then, before things got out of hand, she texted me to say she wanted to chat and make amends. She said we could have a conversation and that it was all a big misunderstanding. I responded by saying I was going to sue her. She was going to regret ever trying to play me, so I encouraged her to enjoy it and brace herself. Emily has been adamant that I cover her daughter's tuition, damaging our family's reputation in the town and online, so I know this will be a difficult battle. My attorney is already getting ready for the case by detailing all of the unfounded charges and the damage she has done to us over the past few months. Some of my family members advised me to give her a chance to resolve the matter, as she is a single mother attempting to act in her child's best interests after learning that I was bringing her to court. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for taking the entitled mother to court rather than selling my home to cover her daughter's college expenses? Update. Emily sent a letter of her own, containing more defamatory remarks and threats, in response to our legal action. Despite being aware of her financial circumstances, she has accused me of charging exorbitant rent, which she claims prevented her from saving money for her daughter's schooling. Her willingness to deceive and go to such lengths to achieve her goals is astounding. I've already given her subsidized rent, so it's annoying to see her play the victim when her claims are unfounded. She is obviously attempting to take advantage of the situation, and I will not allow it to occur. Emily's determination to fight to the end is apparent. Although my attorney, Matthew, has reassured me that we have a solid case because her charges are unfounded, he has advised me to be ready for a drawn-out and taxing court process. I can't help but consider how rapidly things have gotten out of hand. I had no desire to find myself in a courtroom, particularly with someone who had previously occupied my land. However, there are instances when you must defend what is rightly yours and stand your ground. Even if Emily may have good reasons, I can't let her force me to sell my property. The future of my family is on the line, and I'm committed to seeing this through to the end, no matter how difficult it gets. Update 2. The legal process has formally started since my last report. It had been agonizingly painful to wait for the court date. Tension permeated the courtroom as both sides presented their cases and supporting documentation. Emily presented herself as a struggling mother who is committed to securing her daughter's future, accompanied by her lawyer. In a detailed account of financial difficulties, her lawyer emphasized how my property had been the last straw for her daughter's aspirations to enroll in a prominent out-of-state university. Emily's emotional statement was filled with emotions as she talked about the sacrifices she had made as a single mother, including the long hours she put in at work and her unshakable dedication to her daughter's achievement. She portrayed herself as a mother who had done everything she could, talking about her tenacious job hunts and multiple applications for financial aid and scholarships. Emily's lawyer persisted in portraying me as a rich, callous landlord who put money over a young girl's aspirations during the proceedings. They suggested that I had been aware of Emily's financial difficulties but had nevertheless taken advantage of her predicament by charging her exorbitant rent. Emily presented a family friend as a witness, claiming to have overheard a conversation between Emily and me in which I supposedly offered to sell the property to pay for her daughter's college education. This was the most shocking turn of events. When this flagrant untruth was told in court, I sat there in shock. Matthew, my lawyer, vigorously disputed this allegation, claiming that no such discussion had ever occurred. He made the deliberate decision to refute the witness's account. The family acquaintance who testified on the purported conversation was first subjected to cross-examination by Matthew. In order to determine the witness's memory's credibility, he asked a number of specific questions. In an attempt to uncover discrepancies or holes in their memory, Matthew inquired about the time, date, and place of the alleged conversation. The family friend found it difficult to respond with consistent information and was unable to provide any hard proof to back up their claim, such as emails or texts. Under examination, their testimony grew more and more dubious. Matthew provided evidence that directly refuted Emily's account, severely undermining the case's credibility. He presented documents of emails and texts that were sent back and forth between Emily and myself at the time the said agreement was allegedly made. These texts made it quite evident that she had never brought up the idea of selling the land to pay for her daughter's schooling. Rather, they proved that it was Emily who was always putting pressure on me to sell the house. Furthermore, according to testimony from a neighbor who shared a residence with Emily, Emily had been paying lower rent than any other renter in the neighborhood. To support this claim, my attorney retrieved receipts from other local tenants. Matthew continued by arguing that the neighbor's evidence and the lack of any written or electronic correspondence about the purported pledge Emily made called into question the veracity of the family friend's story. This testimony was inadmissible as hard proof. We then concentrated on demonstrating that Emily had purposefully gone to considerable measures to damage my reputation on social media, which had led to my kids being bullied. In a detailed account of Emily's communications and posts on social media, my lawyer claimed that I was a callous and uncaring landlord who did not encourage her daughter's aspirations. In order to win the community's sympathy and support, these posts were rife with emotional appeals and downright lies. We pointed out that these posts were purposefully written to present her as a struggling mother who was doing everything in her ability to ensure her daughter's future, but in actuality, she was using emotional blackmail to pressure me into selling my house. Matthew then displayed screen grabs of direct messages and comments left by people who had interacted with Emily's posts on social media. Because of the misleading information Emily provided, some of these local residents had developed a bad view of me. These remarks ranged from expressing empathy for her predicament to flatly accusing me of being a callous landlord taking advantage of her circumstances. Along with the social media data, we also included witness statements from my kids, who said that Emily's posts caused them to be bullied at school. They described how classmates harassed and name-called them after echoing the untrue statements they had heard about their father on social media. My lawyer contended that the bullying my kids experienced was directly related to Emily's unfounded charges on social media. Emily's purposefully false story had a negative impact on my family's welfare in addition to harming my reputation. This evidence-based presentation clearly illustrated how Emily's social media behavior affected my kids in real life. I continue to believe that justice will be done as the legal process progresses. The truth has been revealed and the untrue allegations against me have been exposed by the evidence that has been given thus far. In my opinion, the court will recognize the manipulation and provide a just resolution in this matter. Third update. We prevailed. The legal proceedings have made the past month a taxing one. Unexpected turns and twists have made it feel like a roller coaster ride. It became more and more obvious that Emily's allegations were unfounded as my attorney began to provide testimony and supporting documentation. When she introduced a family acquaintance who gave a bogus statement about a pledge I had never made, her attempt to control the event failed. The legitimacy of the witnesses' assertions is seriously called into question due to the absence of hard proof and discrepancies in their testimony. The court declared the result and decided in my favor after carefully reviewing all of the testimony and supporting documentation. I was quite relieved by this and thankful that the judge saw through all of the unfounded allegations. After being convicted of defamation, Emily was mandated to compensate me for the damage she had done to my reputation. This involved paying the past month's rent as well as any further penalties. Additionally, a restraining order was granted to stop Emily from speaking negatively about my family or me in the future. My conduct and my right to defend my property were upheld by this decision. I saw Emily seated next to her attorney, looking defeated, as the court case came to an end. As I looked at her daughter Lily, I couldn't help but think that her mother's conceit had ruined her hopes. Justice has been done, and this nightmare is now over. Everyone learned the value of standing up for themselves and not allowing the bold demands of others to undermine our moral convictions. Now that my home and our means of subsistence are safe, I can proceed with a fresh sense of confidence. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has helped me along the way thus far. My family and I endured tremendous emotional strain and hardship, but in the end, the truth won out. Fourth update. 6 months have passed since my previous update. Emily has been successfully silenced by the restraining order since my court victory, and the damages she was required to pay for defamation offered some measure of comfort for the damage done to my reputation. I served Emily with an eviction notice, and she and her kid were forced to vacate. Even if their situation is still difficult, I realized I was no longer in charge of them. Although I felt a little sorry for her daughter's missed educational prospects, the truth was that Emily's bold request had placed their family in a challenging position. Everyone soon saw the full depth of Emily's lies after the court ordered her to remove her defamatory social media posts. When her daughter Lily unexpectedly contacted me to apologize, that was the last I heard from them. I had watched Lily grow up and she had always been a wonderful child, but I stopped communicating with them when her mother began making unfounded accusations against me. She wanted to contact me after her mother publicly lost the case, which startled me. She expressed sincere regret in her message for her mother's actions and the resulting difficulties for her family. She acknowledged that her mother's actions had harmed both of our families and thanked us for our understanding and patience during the process. Lily also mentioned that they had moved to a more reasonably priced neighborhood and that she had made the decision to continue her study at a nearby college. She told me she had begged her mother to back off in a conversation she had with her following the conclusion of the judicial proceedings. "I'm determined to secure my own future without making any bold demands," Lily said. Because of the bogus claims made by her entitled mother, I felt sorry for her at such a young age. I told her that it was great that she was taking charge of her own life and that everyone deserves a second chance. I told her that the past was behind us and wished her well in her studies. Our lives have adapted to a new normal since Emily and her daughter left my property. The burden of the unfounded allegations and the harassment our kids endured has been removed. We intervened by getting in touch with our kids' school and addressing the bullying they experienced. At last, our family may now proceed in harmony. I opened my marriage, lost my husband, and now I'm fighting to win him back. Is it too late? I'm here to seek guidance on how to save my remaining marriage. Let me begin by stating that I have been with my spouse for 7 years, and we have been married for 5 of those years. I'll call us Skylar and James for privacy's sake. In our second year of community college, we got to know one another. James went on to receive a 4-year degree in business administration from a university that provides remote programs at the community college, while I obtained a 2-year degree in office management. In the present, James is 27 and I am 26, and we intended to have a child later this year. Having 4 children, ideally 2 boys and 2 girls, was our desire. Both of our families loved us, and we had a really happy marriage. This is where I made a big error. I formed a relationship with a delivery driver for one of the 3 major delivery companies, which some could refer to as a work-husband relationship. To keep things private, I'll call him Jaden. Jaden has been delivering to my office for about 2 years at the age of 25 and unmarried. Unquestionably, we clicked right away. It wasn't romantic, but there was a spark that pulled me to him. Every time he made a delivery, we would converse for at least 10 minutes. I started to look forward to seeing him and always made sure to be honest with him when he showed up. Our chat went farther than normal one day. Jaden said he wanted to ask me a personal question. He said he didn't want to offend me or endanger our business relationship because it was so personal. I encouraged him to ask and reassured him that was okay. I feel a very strong attraction to you and wondered if you felt it too, he admitted at that point. His audacity shocked and embarrassed me. After giving it some thought, I confessed that I felt it as well. Jaden continued by saying that if I weren't married, he would have asked me out. The conversation ended when I thanked him for the compliment. That was the last of him. Our conversations grew awkward and short throughout the course of the following week. I was so ashamed that I thought I had gone too far. Even as James and I continued to enjoy our married lives at home, the guilt persisted. To be clear, I have always been totally happy with James as a husband, friend, and lover. I thought he would have said the same of me at the time. For me, he was ideal. Nevertheless, I mistakenly started to dream about having both my devoted husband and a relationship with Jaden that went beyond business chats. Later, I discovered that this is frequently called eating cake. Intrigued, I began reading up on open marriages and polyamory. I initially thought the concept was nasty and ridiculous. I was certain James would not consent, and even if he did, I wanted to prevent our marriage from being harmed and our family from becoming estranged. Weeks went by, and my married life was still great. But there were still thoughts of Jaden. I came upon a blog article by a lady in an open marriage with the heading "It Doesn't Hurt to Ask," when I went back to the subject. She talked about how she sought a relationship with a man she met while volunteering, even though she loved her spouse. After 2 years of suppressing her emotions, she finally asked her husband on a lengthy drive. He was interested, which surprised her. 4 years later, they apparently had a stronger, happier connection after opening their marriage and finding other lovers. Because it mirrored exactly what I wanted but was too scared to question James about, her tale struck a chord with me. Then, one Sunday morning, I made the decision to bring up the topic as we were relaxing at home, conversing and using our phones to browse the internet. "I just read this online post about open marriages," I said immediately to James. "How do you feel about them?" "Are you talking about couples sleeping with other people?" he questioned, glancing at me. I reaffirmed and inquired about his thoughts once again. In response, James said he found it repulsive and added that if someone wanted to sleep together, they should simply seek a divorce. I said, "It's really becoming popular here in the US and other Western countries," in an attempt to defuse the situation, but his expression made it obvious that he was disgusted by the subject, so I quickly changed the topic. His response made me decide that I would never bring it up again since I didn't want to endanger our marriage, which I thought was fantastic. A few weeks later, James and I were snuggling in bed together, enjoying the glow from a fantastic evening. He remarked abruptly, "Who did you have in mind when you brought up open marriages last week?" As I lay on his chest, unable to see his face, I went cold. I gently lifted my head to look at him, and a pit developed in my stomach. "What are you discussing? What are you saying?" I stumbled. James clarified that he has read studies indicating that a woman's reference to an open relationship with her boyfriend frequently indicates that she has previously cheated or has another lover in mind. I was shocked by what he said. In fact, I was shaken to my very core. James remarked, "I know you too well," after realizing the effect of his comments. "Just be honest, I can tell you're hiding something." I could have stopped there, but instead I remained silent, turned my head away, and finally told him, "I have never cheated on you and would never do so. Rather, I acknowledged that there was someone at work I may think about if we ever discussed an open marriage." "Tell me about this work friend," James insisted. I reluctantly started to describe Jaden and our encounters, including the moment he revealed his emotions for me. I didn't reveal, though, that I felt the same way about it. I was frightened by James's next statement. "You know, technically, you've already cheated on me." I retaliated defensively, saying, "I haven't cheated?" "Your relationship with this Jaden guy is what's known as an emotional affair," James retorted. James gave me an explanation of the term because I had never heard it before. I listened in frustration as he explained the workings of emotional affairs. James finally proposed that we end the conversation since he needed to go to bed because he had an early start the next day. I couldn't fall asleep, but he did. Rather, I picked up my phone and began looking up emotional affairs. What James had asserted was supported by article after article. My relationship with Jaden was more than simply an emotional one. It was a full-fledged one. I was overcome with guilt. I felt like I had let my hubby down. I went downstairs to make myself some tea because I couldn't sleep, and at around 4 a.m, I fell asleep on the couch. James kissed me awake at 6:45 a.m. "I'm heading out for work," he declared. As usual, I kissed him back and told him I loved him, but this time, with guilt weighing heavily on my mind, I made it clearer than ever. "You should start your day. It's almost 7 a.m. After making love for a few days, we were laying in bed once more when James abruptly remarked, "If you truly want to, I'd be willing to try an open marriage." "Why are you bringing this up now?" I questioned, stunned. He clarified that he had been considering our earlier chats and reasoned that if it was something we wanted, we should attempt it while we were still young. I pledged never to endanger our marriage or our love, but I did show cautious attention. I told him, "You are the most significant person in my life. If our love bond is strong, it will withstand infidelity," James retorted. James didn't respond when I retorted, "A mutual open relationship wouldn't be considered infidelity because we'd both agree to it. Consider our marriage open, starting right now," he remarked instead. Surprised again, I told him to calm down and that we needed to set ground rules. He made the following specifics. We had to let people know ahead of time who we would be sleeping with and when. We had to later, without going into graphic detail, tell each other about the incident. There are no exceptions to the rule that all types of closeness must be protected. I accepted his conditions and suggested a few more. We would maintain the privacy of our open marriage. We would pledge to stay together and prevent these adulterous affairs from ruining our marriage. James declared that he was unable to accept either of these terms. He refused to talk about it more and just said he didn't and wouldn't agree to them when I questioned why. I was worried since this felt totally out of character for James. I snuggled up to him in spite of my discomfort, and we dozed off. I became uncomfortable with the idea of an open relationship throughout the course of the following month because I thought James might be up to something. I chose not to pursue it and concentrated on leading a typical life. I avoided talking to Jaden at work during this time, limiting our exchanges to trivial subjects like the weather or our respective workloads. Then, one day, Jaden asked me if something was wrong and said he truly missed our discussions. I explained to him that I didn't have much time to talk because I was so busy at work and at home. I contemplated whether or not to disclose my open marriage to him. I eventually made the decision to tell him how I wish I could take that choice back. I asked Jaden to join me for a drink after work because it didn't seem acceptable to have such a chat there. He concurred. We got together at a neighborhood tavern with a terrace outside, which was ideal for the warm early spring weather. I asked him directly whether he would be interested in a relationship after telling him about my newly announced marriage. Without hesitation, he said yes. Although he respected my boundaries, Jaden acknowledged that he had been waiting for me to change his mind and that he had been dreaming about me for months. We talked flirtatiously most of the time that night. We decided to have our first romantic meeting at his flat the next day. I made it clear that I had to depart by 6:30 p.m. to go back home to James, who was still my top priority. I came home that evening and made James a delicious meal. After supper, I told him about my conversation and meeting with Jaden earlier in the day, and that we had planned to meet at his apartment the next day, assuming James was still okay with us being married in an open marriage. Despite appearing surprised, James answered, "Oh, yes, all right, so you're meeting him tomorrow?" As my top focus was him and our relationship, I reassured him that we could still cancel if he so desired. "No," he insisted. "Let's do this." In contrast to our typical embraces, I felt hardness and remoteness in his. I blamed it on nerves. We didn't speak much that night as I concentrated on my own work and James worked in his office. I tried to start an intimate conversation with him before we went to bed, but he stated he was too exhausted and wanted to relax. When I woke up the following morning, James had already left, leaving a text message saying that he had neglected to mention an early meeting. He also mentioned that he would see me that evening. This was not like him, but I brushed it off and went about my day as usual, dressing and going to work. I picked a really lovely clothing that day because I knew I was going out with Jaden after work. I texted James throughout the day, but he didn't reply. I contemplated calling off our date with Jaden, but I now regret not doing so. I got a text from James at 4:17 p.m. He promised to meet me that evening and wrote that he loved me. I was relieved by this, and I saw it as his approval to proceed. I'll get right to the point. When Jaden and I first met, our private moment was fierce. There was clearly no love involved, and it wasn't quite as satisfying as it is with James. But because of the unlawful nature of what we were doing and the pure passion, it was physically satisfying. After an hour and a half, I left Jaden's residence and got home shortly after 6:40 p.m. I was shocked to see that James wasn't home yet. I was relieved since it allowed me to take a shower and wash my clothes to get rid of the smell of Jaden's perfume. Despite my physical sense of fulfillment, I was overcome with regret, guilt, and shame. I felt soiled, as though I had violated every fundamental principle in my marriage. I was really anxious, and it was a mental tug-of-war. I made a short but beautiful meal and put candles to create a romantic atmosphere since I was determined to make it up to James. I wanted him to understand how much I loved him and that the sexual relationship with Jaden was meaningless because it was only physical and couldn't compare to the happiness and love I had with James. My hope was that we would make love at the end of the evening. James was still away from home around 7:30 p.m. When I tried to call him, the call went straight to voicemail. I texted him to let him know that dinner was ready when I got home. When I didn't hear back by 8:50 p.m., I became concerned. I kept phoning and texting him, leaving messages, but I never heard back. At last, at approximately 9:30 p.m., James texted me, saying, "Don't wait up. I will arrive home late." He didn't respond when I texted him back to inquire where he was and who he was with. I finally dozed off after midnight, emotionally and physically spent. The sound of the shower running in the guest bathroom awakened me up. When I went up to look, I saw that the door was locked, which was completely out of character for James. He did not answer when I knocked. After 10 minutes, James came out, wrapped in a towel, and said nonchalantly, "Hey, how was your night?" After I assured him that everything was okay, he asked me straight out, "Did you have sex with Jaden?" I winced at his directness and urged him to use a different wording. I reluctantly said, "Yes, Jaden and I were together." I then inquired about his whereabouts. James confessed that he had gone out dancing and spent the night at multiple pubs. Because I could smell perfume on his clothing, I was suspicious and questioned who he was with. Upon pressing, I inquired, "Who is she?" He said that he didn't have to identify her because they hadn't shared a bed. Although I was astonished by what he said, I was more offended by his tone and language. James's angry remarks caused me great concern, although he never used profanity when addressing me. I then questioned him about why he had taken a shower in the guest bathroom. He told me icily that until I had completed 2 STD tests, he would be utilizing the guest bathroom and bedroom. I was devastated by his statements. "This wasn't part of our rules," I objected. I ensured that Jaden wore protection during all of our activities. "Have you never heard of oral HPV or herpes?" James shot back. "Till you're cleared, I won't come within 6 feet of you." Think of this as my personal take on social distancing. I informed James that I wanted to end our marriage right now since I was so distraught and crying. I cried, "This is the last thing I wanted to happen." "No way," James shot back. "I'll have my turn now that you've taken yours." James only stated that he was going to bed since he had an early meeting and needed rest, even though I started crying more. I sobbed on the couch for the majority of the night before dozing off. When I opened my eyes, James was gone. I tried contacting him during the day, but he didn't pick up. He texted me, saying, "Don't wait up for me." I left voicemails and texted, but nobody answered. I felt like I was going crazy because I knew I had probably ruined my marriage. I didn't see Jaden at work that day as there were no deliveries. But I gave him a call at 4:30 p.m. and inquired about our possibility of meeting that night. He acknowledged that I sounded agitated. I told him I wanted to break up with him when we first met, acknowledging that it was a big mistake. I admitted that I just wanted my husband because I loved him. He understood, and all he wanted for was one more connection. Other than that, he would only ever speak to me at work. I consented, and our brief and unremarkable hookup lasted less than 10 minutes and consisted just of a basic posture. Jaden later said to me, "That was awful." I apologized, acknowledging that the entire affair was a tremendous error and not his fault. "You just laid there like a tree trunk." After getting ready and giving him one last hug, I turned to depart. I asked Jaden, bewildered, what he meant when he said, "I'll never understand women like you," before I left, but he just muttered, "Nothing, no comment," with a look of utter hatred on his face. I hurried off, sobbing all the way home. How was I able to be so foolish? I had ruined my marriage for nothing at all. I felt filthy once more and thought I was the world's most foolish person. It was 1 a.m. when James finally returned home. That evening, I was tired of knowing that I was the only one responsible for ruining my life. James did the same thing on Friday, leaving before I woke up and texting me, "Don't wait up for me?" The coldness and distance between us broke my heart. I missed our mornings, evenings, and weekends together, cooking together, going on walks after supper, and chatting about random topics. I sorely missed it when it was all gone. I sent James a text message requesting to speak with him the following morning. "All right," he said, "as long as it's first thing." I asked him where he was going, but he didn't respond. "I'm leaving for the day." It was 1:30 a.m. when he returned home. I just lay in bed and sobbed without saying anything. Without saying anything, James immediately went to bed after taking another shower in the guest bathroom. The following morning, I got up early to await his arrival. He entered the kitchen, poured himself some orange juice, and sat at the table, looking at his phone, at 7 in the morning. The atmosphere was lifeless and icy. I approached him, sat on his knee, and whispered, "Look at me." He looked away, but I gently took hold of his face and met his brown eyes. I said, "You have my undying love. I really apologize for the poor choice I made, not a mistake, but a decision. I will stop at nothing to win back your love and trust." James remained silent while staring at me as if I were crazy. I pleaded, "Are you still in love with me?" He said, "I'm not sure." I sobbed and begged, "I can put this right." He said, "I don't think you can." I said in a fit of rage, "You orchestrated everything. Didn't you set me up for divorce?" James denied it but acknowledged that, based on what he had read, he realized our relationship was probably finished the moment I raised the subject of an open marriage. I questioned him, "Why didn't you just tell me to stop talking to Jaden?" I was devastated by his response. "You can't make someone be faithful. You are either monogamous or not, and it is clear that you are not." He just got up and stated he was going, despite my entreaties not to ruin our marriage. He said he would return after midnight when I questioned where he was going. "Tomorrow is Easter Sunday," I told him. "Our scheduled departure time is 7 a.m. Go visit the home of my parents. We spend every holiday with them because they adore you." James replied icily, "I'm not going." "What am I supposed to tell my parents?" I begged him to come, shocked. "Tell them the truth," he added with a shrug. He packed a gym bag and left the house without saying anything more, despite my repeated pleas for him to stay. I feel totally deflated and ruined inside. I would appreciate any guidance or recommendations regarding actions I can take to keep my marriage intact. I'm particularly interested in hearing from those who have had similar situations with open marriages and whether or not a couple can move over such a betrayal. After an open relationship, have you been able to successfully reconcile? I appreciate you hearing my tale. I'm going to bed now so I can spend the rest of the day crying. First update. I would want to express my gratitude to everyone who replied with comments and encouragement. I was able to get through the past several days because to it. Many individuals properly chastised me and called me derogatory things, but I deserve it and I also value your opinions. 2 of the worst days of my life have been Easter Sunday and today. When I pulled up to my parents' house, they asked me right away, "Where's James?" I lied to them and said he couldn't make it because of an emergency at work. I didn't want the family get-together to be disturbed. At first, my family believed my tale, but as the day wore on, they began to suspect that I wasn't phoning or texting my husband as I usually do. I sent multiple phony texts and claimed to have responses from James, assuring everyone he was still busy at work and would give me a call tomorrow in order to allay their suspicions. To be honest, he never texted or called, not even to see whether I had made it safely. I was devastated by this. On Monday, I had intended to spend the night at my parents' house and discuss our marital issues with them. I was afraid they would be angry and despise me if I did this. I told them this morning, and everything went exactly as I had expected. They shouted at me, called me horrible names, and said that I wasn't brought up this way. When my sister was summoned over, she started to lash out at me as well. I told them I realized what I had done was horrible and sobbed. I promised them that I had grown from the experience and would never do the same thing again. I informed them that regaining James' love and trust would be my only priority going forward. Ultimately, they told me they loved me and would pray for our marriage to be saved, even if they were furious with me. On Monday night, I took a car home. I texted and called James during the day, but he didn't respond. He had gone to Florida to see his parents and would be back on Sunday, according to a note on the counter when I got home. We had arranged to go there together in early May, so I felt terrible. Now that strategy is shattered because of me. I despise myself. For now, that's all I have to say. I'm simply so unhappy and dejected. The fact that I'm no longer crying frightens me. Tears no longer seem worth shedding because of the depth of my hurt and regret. Second update. I didn't intend to publish again for almost a year, but I decided to offer an update because the community showed such a great deal of interest. I have some good news as well as some negative news. The first piece of terrible news is that I'm divorced. Back in December, it was decided. James ultimately came to the conclusion that he couldn't stay married to me once I started seeing another man. He claimed that he was ashamed to be seen with me in public and that he would never be able to trust me again. He claimed that he regained his masculinity after the divorce. I disagree. He never lost his manhood, and only our families are aware of my brief relationship with Jaden. Well, anything. The good news, no, the amazing news, is that last month James and I resumed our dating life. It's been great since Valentine's Day, when we reconnected. Our passion level is unmatched, much higher than when we initially started dating 7 years ago, but we only see each other when he wants to, which has been around once a week. James has stated unequivocally that this is merely a physical matter and that we will never again be a couple, get married, or live together. I'll take what I can get, but I'm not really comfortable with this. I want to get James back. I would like to have his children if I am unable to achieve that. I wouldn't baby trap him, so don't get me wrong. All I want is to have kids with him. Without getting married, I've considered how we could divide custody and still work things out. I don't want children with anybody else, even though I know it seems weird, but I love him. I understand that doing this would probably put any future relationships I might have with other men in jeopardy, but I only want James. That's all I have to say for now, and until something significant occurs, I doubt I'll post again. However, I would adore hearing your thoughts about my predicament. Do you believe that my decision to date James is insane? Is it better for me to go on and find someone else to start a family with? P.S. Jaden has never been an option. I simply made a poor choice with him, and I will never do it again. Thank you. My parents skipped my graduation for my sister's party. AITA for cutting ties due to their neglect. Hello Reddit, I've been struggling for years with a family dilemma and I need your opinion. Hold on tight, because this is a lengthy and intricate tale. My upbringing was typical of a suburban American family, but with a twist. The golden child has always been my older sister. It was evident from the time of my birth that my parents had a favorite, and it wasn't me. They wanted my sister to be attractive, athletic, and vivacious, and she was all three. She had the ability to enchant everyone, including neighbors and new classmates, giving them the sense that she was the epitome of perfection. Then there was me. I wouldn't describe myself as typical, but in my parents' eyes, I might as well have been invisible in comparison to my sister. I was constantly failing. They prevented me from being who I am because they wanted me to appear and behave like her. I wasn't even allowed the luxury of attempting to find myself at a time when most children are having a hard time. Allow me to illustrate this with a few instances from our everyday life. My sister was always the main character in school plays when we were kids. Our parents would be in the spotlight, beaming with delight, and she would be given the lead part. I recall having a minor speaking role in the school play one year. I was ecstatic because I believed that this would be my opportunity to finally make them proud. However, my sister had a soccer match the night of the concert, so they were running late. They devoted the remainder of the evening to praising my sister's performance in her game, completely missing my contribution. The family pictures came next. We would take a family photo each year to use on our Christmas cards. With our parents' hands on her shoulders, my sister would always be the center of attention. Almost as an afterthought, I would be off to the side. I requested if I might stand in the center for once when I was around 12 years old. It hurt more than words can describe when my mother laughed it off and said, "Oh honey, your sister is taller. It just looks better this way." As the abandoned kid who lived in their sister's shadow, all I wanted as a child was the approval and attention of my parents. My day used to be brightened by the smallest hint of positive feedback from them. I realize that's pathetic, but at the moment, it meant the world to me. It wasn't made any easier by my sister. I was bullied by her, and she was brilliant at it. She would never stop telling me that I would never be able to live up to her standards and that our parents would never love me as much as they loved her. My self-esteem was influenced for years to come by everyday suffering. I have a clear memory of one occasion. I had just won a local writing competition at the age of 14. I was ecstatic, thinking, at last, I've accomplished something significant. My sister interrupted me at dinner to announce that she had been selected as the cheerleading squad's captain. Suddenly, my accomplishment was forgotten. My parents talked about how this would look fantastic on her college applications for the remainder of the evening. My victory in the event was never brought up again. The preference became much more obvious as we got older. Our parents purchased a brand new vehicle for my sister when she obtained her driver's license. 2 years later, when it was my turn, I was informed that if I needed to go someplace, I could borrow the old family minivan. Every time I attempted to bring up the obvious difference in treatment, I was told I was being jealous or overly sensitive. When I graduated from high school, that was the tipping point. I was able to graduate as valedictorian in spite of all the difficulties. I couldn't wait to tell my parents about it because it was the proudest time of my early life. As I delivered my speech, I pictured them grinning with pride, finally recognizing me for who I truly was. However, they failed to appear. It seems like my sister's celebration with her friends at our summer cottage was more significant than their younger daughter's high school graduation. They offered me a number of justifications, claiming that graduating from high school wasn't a huge issue. It meant everything to me. I had worked so hard for this moment, which I believed would finally bring them joy. The seats I had set up for the audience were empty, so I recall standing at the stage and looking around in the hopes of seeing their faces. As I spoke at the ceremony, my voice quivering a little, I understood that anything I accomplished would never be sufficient for them. Something inside of me broke that day. I made a choice that would alter my life's trajectory. I chose the college that was the furthest distant from my house. As far away from Ohio as possible, I applied to West Coast schools. My parents were taken aback when I told them I had decided to attend college after dinner one evening. They had presumed that I would attend the same public school where my sister had gone. "But that's so far away," objected my mother. "How will you manage on your own?" It was the first time I can recall them being concerned about me, although even then, there was some skepticism about my skills. College was enlightening. I was able to be myself for the first time in my life. My favorite subject was English, which I studied despite my parents' disapproval. My studies had been pushed to be practical, as they called it, like law or business. However, I refused to back down. I discovered how to live my life as I desired, ignoring their judgment. I really started to take off in college. I found my own strengths without having to constantly compare myself to my sister. I discovered that I had a knack for journalism after joining the campus newspaper. For the first time, I felt recognized and valued for my own abilities when my professors gave me positive feedback on my work. I also met my future husband while I was a college student. Instead of viewing me as someone's sister or daughter, he viewed me for who I was. We first connected in a literary class for general education. I volunteered to help him with an essay he was having trouble with. We spent hours discussing our lives, aspirations, and anxieties in addition to the assignment. For the first time, I felt like I was being heard. My pals weren't truly friends. Usually, they merely approached me to learn more about my sister. However, I discovered in college the importance of true friendships, love, and all of their facets. It wasn't because of or in spite of my family that I met friends who liked me for who I was. We would encourage one another through the stress of term papers and examinations, go on road trips during breaks, and stay up late studying together. I didn't bother phoning my family once I graduated, as I was surrounded by my friends and my future husband. I was correct when I said that they would come up with another reason to skip it. They failed to show up, claiming that my father was unable to postpone a business trip. However, it didn't hurt as much this time. I was surrounded by members of my chosen family who genuinely cared about my progress. I moved in with my now husband, who had secured a position at a tech firm, after graduating and obtained a job in marketing. All I ever heard from my parents when they called at this time was the news about my sister. I never had the stamina to tell them about my life, and they never bothered to inquire about me. Unless they were making negative comparisons to my sister, it seemed as though I didn't exist. One call stands out in my memory. About 6 months had passed since graduation. For someone just out of college, my promotion to junior manager was rather significant. I was thrilled and hoped that my folks would be pleased. I was excited to tell my mother the news when she called. "Oh, that's nice, dear. Did you hear your sister is expecting? We're going to be grandparents," she replied after a brief silence. My sister's pregnancy took up the remainder of the call. No one ever brought up my promotion again. As the years went by, my career took off. I rose through the ranks of the company, receiving honors and promotions, but my family didn't seem to care. My accomplishments were greeted with disdain, or worse, silence, while my sister's merest accomplishments were hailed as national feasts. I made an effort to stay in touch with my relatives. Yes, I did. I would occasionally fly back for Thanksgiving, send birthday cards, and make phone calls on holidays. However, each visit was identical. My sister and her expanding family would take center stage, and I would be relegated to the background. My parents hardly acknowledged me as they lavished affection on her kids, my niece and nephew. I remember one Thanksgiving in particular. I had taken a leave of absence from an important project at work and flown home. I hoped that things would be different this time. Without the typical drama, perhaps we could enjoy a pleasant family meal. How foolish I was. We talked about my sister's recent home improvement and her kids' academic success the whole evening. My father interrupted me in the middle of telling me about my recent promotion to senior manager to inquire about my sister's Christmas plans. My current spouse and I became engaged a few years later. Later that year, we were to get married. Surprisingly, my family expressed interest in the marriage when I told them. I dared to dream for a second that things could be turning around. However, when they learned that my fiancé came from a typical middle-class family instead of a wealthy one, their curiosity soon gave way to disappointment. They wanted me to marry into a family with great social standing, just like my sister did. You know, your sister's husband is a surgeon, so there must be some good physicians or attorneys at your company. But honey, my mother continued, her voice brimming with disappointment. Don't you think you could do better? Their suggestion left me stunned. They were still unable to accept my decisions and see me for who I was after all these years. The final person to find out about my wedding was my sister, who never held back when voicing her dislike for both my fiancé and me. She always talked to me as if I were the dirt under her feet. However, I was insensitive to her reactions by that point because I had grown accustomed to it. She scoffed when I informed her about my fiancé's work and asked, "A marketing manager? I suppose that's nice. Not everyone can marry a doctor, after all." We proceeded with our wedding arrangements in spite of my family's response. With the assistance of my in-laws and friends, the wedding was organized. The parents I never had were my in-laws. I cried more than once because they loved me unconditionally and treated me like their own. They constantly promised me that they would support me because they were aware of my difficulties with my sister and parents. My future in-laws were kind, encouraging, and truly interested in my life, everything I could have ever hoped for in a parent. They celebrated by taking us out to dinner after I informed them of my promotion. They listened to my worries about the wedding and my family's response without passing judgment and provided consolation and guidance. One of the conversations I had with my future mother-in-law almost made me cry. I hesitated when we were discussing wedding invitations because they were from my family. She asked what was wrong after noticing my anxiety. She dropped the pen she was holding and took my hands in hers after I explained the circumstances. "Sweetheart," she declared, "family is more than blood. It's the people who love and support you, who celebrate your joys and comfort you in your sorrows. We may not have given birth to you, but you are our daughter in every way that matters." I couldn't adequately convey the significance of her words. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere and that people loved and respected me for who I was, not how I compared to other people. Ultimately, my parents weren't happy with the way our wedding was organized. Only our closest friends and family were invited to the tiny, uncomplicated wedding. My fiancé and I both desired a simple wedding that would highlight and symbolize our relationship and love. However, my parents urged me to alter the specifics in order to accommodate a larger gathering with lavish decor. They contended that since I was their daughter, I ought to get married the way my sister did. Their last-minute suggestions irritated me, so I urged them to focus on me for once. "This is my wedding," I firmly informed them. "We want a small, intimate ceremony with the people who truly care about us. If you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." It was so quiet on the other end of the phone. My sister was clearly struggling to come to terms with the fact that my wedding day will be all about me. Every time we met, she made sure to demoralize me by making crude remarks about what a real wedding ought to be like. With a tone full of phony worry, she would ask, "Are you sure you want to do it this way? People might think you can't afford a proper wedding. It's not too late to let mom and dad help, you know." I was experiencing a mixture of trepidation and excitement as the wedding day drew near. The family conflict was clouding what should have been the happiest day of my life, even though I was excited to marry the love of my life. There was a lot of last-minute planning going on the week before the wedding. We were rushing about to finalize the details, check with vendors, and greet visitors from out of town. My phone was eerily silent the entire time. There were no texts from my sister wishing me luck or calls from my parents asking if I needed assistance. The quiet was a fresh source of worry as well as a relief. My phone eventually buzzed the night before the wedding, while we were sitting in our apartment surrounded by seating maps and wedding favors. My mother sent me a text. "Your father and I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to wear the necklace your grandmother left you." No congrats. No show of enthusiasm or affection. Just a little reminder that I was already going to wear a family heirloom. That night, I slept with a knot in my gut, wondering what the next day might hold. Would I be accepted for who I am by my family at last? For a single day, might they put aside their criticisms and comparisons and just be pleased for me? Or was I preparing myself for one last heartbreaking letdown? I had no idea that the worst was still to come. I'm at a loss, Reddit. The catastrophe on the wedding day and the events that transpired have caused me to doubt everything. Is it inappropriate of me to want my parents to attend my special day? Are years of neglect causing me to overreact? I want your honest thoughts. Is it time to break off relations with my family, or should I keep fighting for a relationship? I'll provide an update on the wedding day and its aftermath shortly. I would be very grateful for any guidance or assistance. I feel like I'm at a fork in the road and don't know which way to go. First update. I appreciate all of your support on my last post, Reddit. I've attached the update I promised regarding my wedding day and its events. On the morning of my wedding, I felt both anxious and excited. My mom called as I was getting ready. My heart leaped for any encouraging or loving words. Rather, she struck a devastating blow. Honey, we won't be able to make it to the wedding. Your sister's child is having his birthday party today, and you know how important family is to us. I was taken aback. Instead of attending their daughter's wedding, my parents were picking a kid's birthday celebration. Don't be selfish, dear, I'm sure you understand. You don't even have children, so these things might not seem important to you, my mother stated in response to my complaint. I felt numb as I hung up. When my future mother-in-law heard, she reassured me right away. Remember, she continued, you have a whole room of people here who love you and are excited to celebrate with you today. At that moment I resolved not to allow the absence of my family spoil my day. It was a lovely ceremony. Nothing else mattered until I saw the joy on my fiancé's face as I walked down the aisle. It meant so much to me that my father-in-law substituted for me during the father-daughter dance. Although there was a lot of love and happiness at the reception, my family's absence was always brought to mind by the vacant chairs where they should have been. My family had left me notes and missed calls when I got up the following morning. In fact, my sister had texted, "Hope you had a nice wedding. Sorry we couldn't make it, but the party was a blast." The final straw was that. I dialed them, my voice trembling with determination and rage. I said, "I'm done," to them. "You've shown me where I stand in this family, and I'm done accepting it. From now on, you're no longer part of my life." I hung up and banned their numbers in spite of their protests. It was the most liberating thing I've ever done, but it was also one of the hardest. The next weeks have been difficult. In addition to feelings of relief, there are times of uncertainty and sorrow. The support from my husband and in-laws has been tremendous. In order to overcome years of emotional neglect, I have begun treatment. My marriage and our future together are my main priorities, one that isn't hampered by my family's rejection for the first time. Again, I want to thank Reddit for your support. I was able to defend myself because of it. I'm focusing on getting better and moving on for the time being, but I'll keep you updated if anything noteworthy occurs. Am I mistaken for severing my familial ties? Even though I no longer believe so, I would still value your opinions as I move forward in this new phase of my life. Second update. Reddit, I haven't posted in a month, and my family situation has gotten worse. This is what took place. My parents arrived at our flat without warning a week after I last posted. They demanded to know why I had severed ties with them. I carefully described how their absence at my wedding and years of neglect had caused me much pain. "We've always loved you," my mom insisted. "Everything we did was because we wanted the best for you." It was unbelievable to me. I explained to them how their partiality had damaged my self-worth and how, as a result of their treatment of me, I had spent years believing I was unworthy. It was not warmly received by them. While my mother wept over me breaking her heart, my father accused me of being ungrateful. Fortunately, my in-laws showed up and requested that my parents vacate. "When you're done with this tantrum, you know where to find us?" my mother added as they departed. I was mistaken to believe that would be the end of it. I came across a social media post from my sister a few weeks later. "Finally got my dream bike. Thanks, Mom and Dad," was the caption for a picture of her holding my old motorcycle. I was taken aback. I purchased that bike on my own after graduating from high school. I intended to bring it to my new residence following the wedding, therefore I had left it at my parents' house. My sister confirmed that our parents had given her the bike when I called her. My parents dismissed it when I brought it up, claiming that once I was married, I no longer needed it. My father told me, "Don't be selfish. Your sister needs it more than you do." That was the last straw. I threatened to take legal action if they didn't return the bike right away. They said I couldn't sue my parents, laughing. I answered, "Watch me," and hung up. My husband and I talked it over and ultimately agreed to get legal advice. She verified that we had a case. I owned the motorcycle, which I had paid for myself. We have formally demanded in writing that the motorcycle be returned. We're ready to go to court if that doesn't work. I never imagined that I would have to consider taking my own parents to court, yet here we are. Am I going too far by bringing up attorneys, Reddit? Is it right for me to hold my ground, or should I let the motorcycle go for the sake of peace? As soon as my parents respond, I'll provide an update. I would be grateful for any guidance or assistance. All of this feels unreal, and I'm having a hard time figuring it out. I appreciate your support, everyone. You don't realize how much it matters. Third update. Hello Reddit, I'm back to provide the resolution to this family drama, which has been going on for approximately 3 months. I want to thank each and every one of you for your unwavering support during this challenging road. A lot has transpired. Let us start by discussing the motorcycle's legal status. My parents originally disregarded the formal letter we wrote requesting its back. They appeared to believe that we were threatening to file a lawsuit. My father finally answered the phone when our lawyer called to follow up, but he only did so to deny our accusations and threatened to disown me if we went any further. We made the decision to bring a civil lawsuit. Although it was a difficult choice, we believed that we had to defend our position. It was a weird day when we learned that the lawsuit had been filed. I never thought that my parents and I would be involved in a court case, but here we were. To our astonishment, my parents' attitude drastically altered once they recognized how serious we were. They wanted to talk things out and stay out of court all of a sudden. Their plan to sort things out, though, was to use guilt tripping to get me to dismiss the lawsuit. My father would alternate between being angry and trying to manipulate me by saying things like, "After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us." My mother called and sobbed about how I was destroying the family over a silly bike. I remained steadfast. I clarified that the issue was no longer simply about the motorcycle but also about limits, respect, and realizing that they had no right to give away my belongings. My parents eventually consented to return the motorcycle after realizing they would have to appear in court. Nonetheless, they demanded payment for my sister's gift from them. As long as I regained my property, I was okay with this. It was a stressful day when I went to pick up the motorcycle. Fortunately, my sister wasn't present, but my parents were aloof and unfriendly. My mother tried to guilt me one final time as I was getting ready to depart. "I hope you're happy now," she said. "You've gotten what you wanted, but at what cost?" After giving her a quick glance, I answered, "The cost of my self-respect and the realization that I deserve better treatment from my family." After that, I felt both sad and free as I went out on my bike. I've come to the conclusion that I need to take a total vacation from my family as a result of this event. I haven't made this decision lightly, but I think it's essential for my well-being and mental health. I've been negatively impacted by the years of favoritism toward my sister, the ongoing manipulation of my emotions, and the disdain for my accomplishments and sentiments. I've tried to gain their acceptance for far too long, only to be let down and hurt all the time. I've benefited greatly from my therapist's assistance in processing these emotions. She has taught me that putting my own health first, even if it means separating from toxic family members, is okay. She has also assisted me in identifying the emotional abuse patterns that I have accepted throughout the years. I've formally told my parents that I've decided to sever all contact. I wrote them a letter outlining my justifications and requesting that they honor my request to avoid communication. Their reaction was expected. A mix of fury, guilt-tripping, and attempts to downplay how I felt. However, I was able to ignore it for the first time. I've come to understand that my value is not determined by what they think of me. Naturally, my sister has sided with our parents. I've blocked her on all social media sites to stop her from spreading hateful remarks about ungrateful siblings and the importance of family. The upside is that this experience has strengthened my bonds with my husband and in-laws. They have provided me with constant love and support, making them my rock. In particular, my mother-in-law has been amazing. Whenever I needed a consoling embrace or a sympathetic ear, she was there. With the drama in my family no longer a burden, my husband and I have been concentrating on creating our life together. We've been discussing creating a family, and for the first time, I'm thrilled about the idea without having to worry about constantly being compared to others or living up to unrealistic expectations. I've also been putting a lot of effort into my hobbies and job. Painting has been immensely therapeutic and has helped me rediscover aspects of myself that I had repressed for years. I've always wanted to try painting but never did because my parents didn't think it was a useful skill. We've been hanging out a lot with friends who have grown to be like family. Being around by upbeat, encouraging people has completely changed the way I view the world. In retrospect, I can say that this entire experience has been both transforming and extremely painful. I've learned to prioritize my own well-being, set limits, and advocate for myself. I've come to understand that family is made up of those who love and support you without conditions, not just blood ties. I want to reassure those who may be in similar circumstances, it's acceptable to keep your distance from poisonous family members. Prioritizing your happiness and mental well-being is okay. You should be supported, loved, and respected, and sometimes it means starting your own family. I would want to express my gratitude to this community for all of your help and guidance during this trip. You have no idea how much your encouraging comments have meant to me. They have made me believe in myself and have given me courage in the most trying times. I feel optimistic about the future as I finish this chapter of my life. I'm excited about the life I'm creating, a life full of love, respect, and true happiness. But I'm also sad about the family ties I've lost. Once again, thank you everybody. I'm thankful to know that this community is available in case I ever need assistance, even if I hope I won't have to provide any more updates concerning family drama. My biological mother organized my birthday celebration around her stepdaughter's favorite pastimes, and I laughed in her face. When I was 6 years old, my parents divorced and went their own ways. They both started new families, although they obviously shared custody of me. My mother married a man, let's call him Robert, when I was 9 years old. He already had a daughter, Kira, who was 2 years my senior. When I was 8 years old, my dad proposed to Lila, a lovely woman, and they were married when I was 12. Lila and I have a lovely friendship. For me, she has been a real mother. She essentially assisted my dad in raising me, showed interest in my life, offered consolation, counseled me, and we had things in common. Together, we engaged in a variety of activities. She and I just discussed the prospect of her legally adopting me when I reach adulthood. Since my parents share custody, doing so today might be a little complicated legally, but I want it to be formal because she is my real mother. In contrast, I have virtually little relationship with my biological mother. I was made to spend some days with her, but we were never able to connect. Since Kira already had her own mother, she devoted all of her time to showing her love and care. Kira was always involved in activities, even when my mom tried to include me, and we only did things that she enjoyed. I eventually began turning down her invites and frequently asked if I might skip seeing her on the designated days. I preferred to stay at home with my father and Lila because I was nearly always disregarded or left out. Although he had to follow the judge's guidelines, my father always made an effort to understand me. As I grew older, he acknowledged that he was worried that if he allowed me to skip the visits, my mother may pursue some nasty legal action. My mom was probably going to do this. I didn't want to cause my father any trouble after hearing this because I understood his motivations. I stopped requesting things like that and complied with the timetable. Let's go right to the subject now. My 18th birthday is in 2 weeks. Fortunately, my birthday coincides with the days I'm supposed to be with my dad. Thus, a month ago, he, Lila, and I began organizing my birthday. Nothing too extravagant, just a get-together with loved ones at my favorite pizza joint. A laid-back evening where I can enjoy myself and the people I care about. I enjoy singing, and the place provides karaoke. We invited everyone, including my mother, after making reservations and organizing everything. To be honest, I didn't really want her there, but I reasoned that since I won't be bound by the judge's regulations once I turn 18, this might be the only time I had to include her. In order to finalize the guest list for the pizza establishment, we sent out the invites 2 days ago and have already received the majority of the responses. My mother was the only one who hadn't replied. I told my dad that I wouldn't press the issue because I was okay with her not wanting to come if she didn't reply. Although he didn't express it publicly, I believe my dad was also a little relieved. This afternoon was when the drama began. In a furious phone call, my mother accused me of being immature and advised me to never make plans without first informing her. She frequently forgot my birthday, so it was hypocritical of her to complain now. I was perplexed and reminded her that I've always planned my birthdays with Dad and Lila. She became very furious as a result. Claiming Kira had been crying ever since she saw the invitation, she began to attack me. Kira had apparently already organized an entire birthday celebration for me. I couldn't speak. There is no relationship between Kira and me. She is the quintessential pampered brat who craves attention, and my mother has always encouraged this behavior, which has made it worse. We've never had a good relationship. Why Kira would want to plan a birthday celebration for me was beyond me. It was illogical. She didn't tell me why she did it, so I asked her. She didn't really expect me to have no plans for my 18th birthday, did she? It was absurd. According to my mother, it was meant to be a surprise, And she assumed I didn't want to do anything for my birthday because I hadn't told her about my intentions. She could have just asked, after all. The worst part, though, the one that made me lose my temper, is about to happen. Perhaps in an attempt to make me feel bad about what I would have missed, my mother began to detail everything Kira had arranged for my celebration. Kira's favorite hobby was everything, even the things I didn't enjoy. For instance, she had made lunch reservations at a fish restaurant. I avoid eating fish because it makes me sick, not because I'm impulsive. Even though I've had it checked, my body just rejects it. I'm not allergic. She also organized an afternoon event at a horseback riding ranch close to the city where my mom currently resides. Horses don't appeal to me. I'm afraid of riding them or being around something that large, but it's not that I don't enjoy them as creatures. The final plan was to return to my mom's house for a BBQ meal in the backyard. I simply didn't want to see my mother more than was absolutely required. Furthermore, my mother added that invitations had already been sent out. I was stunned at this moment. Since none of my pals, my dad, or his family had gotten anything, I had to inquire as to who they had shipped them to. It turned out that the majority of the people on the guest list were Kira's friends, Robert's family, and my mother's family. Under the guise of celebrating my birthday, Kira essentially planned a party for herself. I was unable to contain myself any longer. I hung up the phone after laughing in my mother's face. The entire situation was too absurd to be real. After a little while, my dad approached me and told me that my mom had phoned him because I had made fun of her. He became agitated and began telling me that they were attempting to be kind for once, regardless of how I felt about my mother. I immediately stopped him and gave him the party's specifics, which my mother had reportedly forgotten. His face shifted rapidly. I've been listening to him rage at my mother for the past 20 minutes or more, and he just said, "I'm going to make a phone call." When Lila heard about the issue, she came to me. She acknowledged my point of view, but suggested that laughing in my mother's face and hanging up wasn't the most responsible way to react. She wasn't upset, but she was a little let down that I hadn't handled it more politely. I thought about what I had done after she had gone. I don't think discussing it with my mother would have helped, but perhaps I was a bit harsh. I could have handled it better though. I am beginning to believe that I may have been a bit of a jerk at that time. In all honesty, though, what did she anticipate? That I would bow down and take the scraps that were thrown to me? She was obviously not thinking at all. As usual, she was simply following Kira's lead. The problem is that individuals like that depend on others to comply without protest. They are unable to cope with the inevitable counterattack. Was I able to be more courteous? Yes, most likely. Was my response entirely warranted? Oh, of course. To any stranger on the internet who might be reading this, I'm proud that I defended myself. I've developed strong bonds with my father and stepmother, and I'm really proud of myself for resisting my mother's foolishness. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. What about my mother? If I decide to stop communicating with her after my birthday, she's going to have a terrible awakening. To be honest, it's advantageous to all parties. I can appreciate Lila's perspective, but there's no reason to hold back if your parents don't accept you at almost 18. Updated. I first discussed my response to my mother with Lila. Lila has consistently stressed the value of communication and urged me to discuss my issues in order to find solutions. I realize the context of her remark regarding my actions. But I also expressed my opinion to her, telling her that I was laughing because it was the only natural response I had to the situation my mother was describing, which was too ridiculous. I honestly wondered at one point, is this a joke or some kind of nasty prank? Is she inventing this, due to the fact that her foolishness was completely absurd? Although she acknowledged my viewpoint, Lila warned me that there will be times in life when I can't just chuckle and end the call. She was concerned about how I would respond and wanted to teach me how to deal with such circumstances in the future. I'm glad we had a conversation and were able to resolve the issue. I also discussed my dad's phone conversation with my mother. My mother apparently had a reason for everything. She said that Kira wanted to share her love of horseback riding with me, that she wanted to make a nice sisterly gesture on my special day, and that she didn't think my dislike of fish was a serious problem, just a whim. She even defended the fish restaurant by claiming that the fish they provided was the best in town. I threw up multiple times in front of her as a child, just because I was around areas that smelled strongly of fish, so that last excuse was a flagrant lie. She is well aware that I have a serious problem with it. My father said that Kira had obviously arranged the celebration for herself and that nothing they had prepared was done for me. He made the point that if none of my significant others were invited, it wasn't a party for me. Instead of reacting to this, my mother started to complain about how pampered and ungrateful I was. My dad then hung up the phone and told her to go to hell. I took another piece of advice from all of you after hearing this, and I wrote a letter to my mother. I decided to be mature this time and write it as courteously as I could. I stated I was sorry for laughing, but I explained that my only natural response to what she said was to laugh since it was so absurd. I reminded her that she doesn't know me at all, has never cared to get to know me, and never made an attempt to establish a relationship with me. I pointed out that they could enjoy the birthday celebration with their family and friends because it was full of things that Kira liked. Additionally, I informed her that her actions made it plain what her priorities were, so I rescinded her invitation to my pizza party and advised her not to bother attending. I said she wasn't on my list of priorities, which I now possessed. I informed her that I was already very happy having Lila as my mother. I asked her not to get in touch with me again and wished her well with her new family. I don't mind that she didn't reply after reading the message. She would have likely complained more about how spoiled and ungrateful I am if she had responded. She either doesn't understand or acts as though she doesn't, so there's no need in talking to her. But I feel more at peace now that I've made my feelings clear and this scenario is over. I'm grateful to everyone for assisting me in seeing that a definitive conclusion was required. My dad questioned my mom about how she could have thrown me a surprise party when I wasn't around. He also questioned how she could have believed that he wouldn't celebrate my 18th birthday. She clarified that Robert had made plans to come collect me on the morning of my birthday, but my dad took it a little personally. LOL. Under false pretenses, they planned to take me to my mother's house and explain the situation to Dad and Lila. To be honest, I have no idea how they anticipated this to function. No matter what reason they came up with, I would have flatly refused to visit my mom's house if it hadn't been her planned day. Above all, I would never have left Lila and Dad to celebrate my 18th birthday at my mother's house. A positive relationship between my mother and I would have been one thing, but that was certainly not the case. Robert is the only one I don't feel like blaming in all of this. Even though we were never close, he was always courteous to me when we shared a home. When I went to my mother's house, he even cleared out his study to give me a permanent place in his home. I don't blame him for anything because he always tried to be nice to me, even though we didn't form a stepdaughter-stepfather tie. He probably sincerely believes that the party is for me. We aren't close enough for him to understand my preferences unless my mother informed him, which I doubt she did. Fortunately, nothing of mine was left at my mother's place. My father's residence is where I keep all of my possessions. When I went to my mother's, I would usually fill my bag with the things I would need for the day and bring them back when I went to my father's. Because Kira's friends and Robert's family frequently visited, I never felt comfortable leaving anything with her because I didn't want my possessions in plain sight of strangers. That's about it for now. I hope my mother respects my decision to stop communicating with me and stops bothering me. Following the holidays, I would like to discuss the adoption with Leah. When we first discussed it, she appeared to be really happy. Once again, I want to thank everyone for their wisdom and nice thoughts. Your advice has improved my situational management. Although I acknowledge that I'm still a little immature, I believe this experience has allowed me to evolve and see the problem from a variety of angles. Best wishes to you? Yes, I considered contacting Robert, but I don't have his phone number. Since most of our meetings were friendly greets and light conversation, we never felt the need to stay in touch. The last time I left my mother's place, I believe Robert and I said our final goodbyes because I don't have Kira's number either. I don't spend a lot of time with my mother's relatives. My grandma, my aunt, and my uncle are the only 3 individuals involved. I've only seen my uncle a few times over the holidays when I'm spending time with my mother because he and his family reside a few hours away. Every time we interacted, it was short and far away. I only have friendly contact with my grandmother and aunt. They have given me money as birthday presents using my father's card, and we text each other holiday pleasantries, but that's about it. Even when we have met, our discussions have been informal and have only been exchanging life updates. They haven't texted me since the incident with my mother, and I didn't ask any of them until my 18th birthday. I believe they simply don't give a damn. Let's go on to the second tale. Before anyone told me directly, my wife's friend's Instagram account revealed our pregnancy, causing a flurry of activity and tears. She is 27 and I am 29. We both hail from the same hometown, but we currently reside in different cities. We have been dating for 4 years and married for 2. Because of work, I stayed behind while she attended a family gathering in our hometown. It finally happened after 3 months of trying to conceive. The manner I learned about it is the issue. In our group conversation, my friend thanked me by sharing a screenshot of an Instagram story that one of my wife's friends had shared. "You're going to be the best mom," was the caption on the photo, which included my wife sobbing and embracing a few of her pals. I immediately contacted her, and she picked up right away, saying, "I have news, babe." I only said, "I know, you're pregnant." "Wow, babe, how did you know?" I simply answered. "I saw it on Instagram." "Didn't think to give me a call first?" "What?" she asked. I said, "Yeah, but your friends posted something." "I didn't." "That's one way to know I'll become a father." I said, "Thank you," and hung up. I was enraged. She called repeatedly, but I didn't pick up until my sister called a short while later. My sister had just arrived at my in-laws' house, where everyone was fighting and panicking, and my wife was confined in her room, so she asked me what was going on. She exclaimed, "There's no way she would do that," when I told her what had happened. "Well, she did," I said. My sister promised to investigate the situation. She gave me a call back a little while later and gave me all the details. I had cooled down by then and assumed it was just a bad buddy who had chosen to post without authorization. However, my sister gave me the specifics. My wife was apparently having a late period, and while she was visiting a friend, they asked, "What if you're already pregnant?" They purchased numerous pregnancy tests, each of which produced good results. They emailed some local acquaintances to invite them over after becoming alarmed and telling her parents. Just 2 hours had gone by between the time she learned and the moment her buddies shared the information on Instagram. Before telling me, my wife told 10 or more individuals. For the record, when my sister came, she informed me that the reason for the disagreement was that the other friends were angry with the person who had posted on Instagram. Evidently, they were all upset with her and felt that was a horrible thing to do. However, they were equally baffled as to why my wife hadn't informed me earlier. When I eventually contacted my wife, she was in tears. She apologized and explained that she hadn't told me yet since she had been preparing to surprise me. I expressed skepticism, pointing out that she wouldn't have been prepared to tell me at the same moment I called if she had truly intended to surprise me. I told her I needed some time to reflect when she fell silent. She screamed that we needed to discuss it and that I couldn't just leave. "Why do we need to talk?" I answered. "So you can tell lies once more," and I ended the call. I've received a ton of messages, but I'm really worn out. I'm exhausted by this. I'm not sure why. I'm not a crier, therefore it's odd for me to cry at random. I feel like I've been struck by a truck, but this isn't supposed to be a big problem. "Hey, I know this sucks, and it was crappy of her, but don't let this ruin it for you," was the message my sister sent me, and it truly stuck. "You will become a father. You will make a fantastic father. This is fantastic. The knowledge that I will soon become a father is the only thing that keeps me going at the moment. This is what I've dreamed of, and my only wish is that the kid is well." To keep my wife from becoming very upset during the pregnancy, I'll probably swallow my pride and act as though nothing is wrong. But tomorrow, I'll do it. I'm going to just pout tonight. Edit. I didn't think much of posting this in the Reddit void, but when I woke up, I saw thousands of comments and dozens of direct messages. Holy. I sincerely appreciate your concern. Just to make a few points clear, is it possible that the baby is not mine? No chance. Classic Reddit LOL. She works from home, but that isn't possible because our house is equipped with home security cameras. Girls' nights are not something she does. I work with a female coworker who happens to be her best friend in the city where we live, and the three of us frequently hang out. They rarely spend time together in person, but they frequently text one another. If they do, I'll be in the adjacent room at our house. The clingiest person on the planet is my wife. She texts me every 30 minutes while I'm at work. She's usually in the same room as me or cuddling up to me when I'm at home. She holds my hand or arm when we're out. Most of the time, I genuinely enjoy it. I feel appreciated. However, it could be excessive. I even asked whether the argument we had weeks ago was the reason she didn't inform me straight away. However, it most likely isn't. Regarding her buddies, they are all really kind individuals. They've been in my life for a while. Some of the people in my sister's friend group have known each other since they were 12 years old. The only person who lives in a distant city is my wife. When she is in town, they always spend a lot of time together. I can't stress enough how completely out of character this is for her. Like everyone else, she has numerous shortcomings, but being careless is not one of them. She wouldn't intentionally do this, which is why I woke up in the middle of the night with the thought that I could be mistaken. No way. I texted her to let her know that everything was good and that I would make the 4-hour drive down there to speak with her. In fact, she asked if she might call when she was awake. After doing so, she expressed her desire to return home. I informed her that I will be picking her up. "Are we all right?" she questioned. She broke down in tears as soon as I said yes. I informed her that we would have to discuss it, but that I was thrilled and eager to meet her. After that, she became a little more composed. Update 1. Hi there once more. I'm here to give you an update now that everything has calmed down and I believe I have all the facts. My wife waited for me on the sidewalk when I arrived at my in-laws' house. She threw herself at me, apologized repeatedly, and simply gave me a hug while expressing her regret. Before our conversation, I told her I was quite exhausted and wanted to take a nap when we got to her room. We held each other while we slept. When we woke up, our conversation felt like a never-ending cycle in which I asked her what had happened and she responded that she was foolish and to blame. She insisted that since she had ruined a significant event in our lives, it didn't matter what occurred. She simply reiterated that she made a mistake and that nothing else mattered when I persisted in inquiring. She finally admitted that she didn't want to make excuses for me and that accepting responsibility and offering an apology was the proper course of action. After a while, I gave in and told her that everything was okay and that she was forgiven. Nevertheless, I wanted to speak with her buddy, who spent the entire day with her and purchased the pregnancy test for her. According to the friend's narrative, they freaked out for an hour and discussed how to surprise or tell me when my wife tested positive. When my mother-in-law finally arrived home, they all told her. To talk about how to inform me, they made the decision to bring a few girlfriends around. The friend discussed all of their opinions, and I completely agree with her. She added that the group had discussed it, which I was unaware of at the time, and that they should all be silent since we hadn't chosen when to make the announcement. It seems that the one girl who shared it on Instagram did it intentionally. At that time, they were even talking about methods to tell me with her there, even though she had been instructed not to speak. When she uploaded the photo, another buddy had just arrived and was informed of the situation. She immediately decided to publish about it for whatever reason. She first said she was unaware that she was not permitted to post it when they approached her. After maintaining that falsehood for some time, she just told everyone she didn't give a damn and walked away. We haven't heard from her since she blocked everyone in the group. Whether she was jealous of my wife or something else, no one knows why she did it. Right now, we don't give a damn. We too have her blocked, and we do not wish to communicate with her. The friend's account was later verified by my sister. She thought my wife had just told everyone and had forgotten to tell me when she originally called me with the details. However, after speaking with my mother-in-law and other friends, she shared the same tale with me. In addition, my mother-in-law, the friend I spoke with, and another acquaintance informed me that when I phoned my wife, she essentially said, "Screw it, I'm telling him right now." And she was quite eager to do so. During our return ride home, my wife and I spoke once more, although I already knew the majority of the details. Her side of the story was much the same as what my sister and the buddy told me. She apologized profusely once more and insisted that I was her top priority and that this was one of the worst things she had ever done. At her urging, we have a couples counseling session scheduled for next week. She feels that I need a place to completely express my thoughts, even though I don't think it's necessary. She fears that I'm holding everything inside and that I forgave her too quickly. To be honest, I'm already willing to forgive her and put this as a one-time incident because she cares about my sentiments. Additionally, we made our first visit to an obstetrician, not just because it's the correct thing to do, but also because I was warned by many about the dangers of miscarriages in the first trimester of pregnancy. The doctor indicated it was a little early for an appointment, and my wife's last period was approximately 6 weeks ago. However, after conducting numerous tests, they were able to determine that my wife is definitely pregnant. Everything appears to be going okay so far. My dream wedding becomes a nightmare. Since my fiancé is always siding with his sister, which makes me doubt our relationship as a whole. Roy, 31 million, and I, 30 female, are getting married. We clicked immediately when we first met in college. He is intelligent, endearing, attractive, and helpful. After falling in love, we worked together to plan every aspect of our future, including retirement, vacations, a college fund for our children, where to live, and how many children to have. I adore him. He is both my best friend and my soulmate. Every time I accomplished something, he would tell me he was proud of me. He really encourages me to pursue my goals and aspirations. He would encourage me to pursue endeavors I was apprehensive about by assuring me of my abilities and skills. Every time I got ready to go out, he would tell me how fortunate he was to have me as his girlfriend and give me a compliment. Roy's older sister, Kim, 33F, was 10 years old when his father died when he was just 8. Yummy, 55F, his mother, never got married again. She is a very kind woman. Kim rarely came and lived in a distant location for work, so I never really got to know her. At my nation, we got engaged at an engagement ceremony 8 months ago. The bride and groom typically exchange vows in front of close family members and friends. Kim returned to our city shortly after and got a job here. Things became tricky at that point. Here, it's common for the bride's parents to cover the wedding expenses. My dad instructed me to arrange the wedding according to Roy's and my preferences after hiring a wedding planner. My future mother-in-law didn't become involved in the planning process at first, but Kim followed us wherever we went, including to the caterers, the florist, and the wedding planner's office. Roy and I were the only people I wanted. I expressed my displeasure to him that Kim was making something that ought to have been exclusively for us into a third-wheel scenario. He advised me to be more hospitable as Kim merely wanted to attend her brother's wedding. If she hadn't spoken up and hadn't offered her valuable feedback, I would have accepted it. She would ask, "Pastel?" as I selected flowers. "Select a new color scheme." The planner would argue, "That won't give a proper view to the guests on the far left," if I proposed a chair configuration. Since coconut pudding was my all-time favorite dessert as a child, I wanted to serve it to my guests at my wedding. "But you know what? Not coconut, please. I have allergies," Kim remarked. Roy's constant support of her was the thing that annoyed me the most. He refused to argue or even make concessions when it came to my decision versus hers. He would simply state, "As long as you are my bride, it doesn't matter what flowers we have. Babe, let it go. It's not very important. The fact that we are getting married and beginning a new life together is all that matters." "It's not just about you," he said, warning me not to be self-centered when the coconut pudding issue arose. "It concerns us both as well as our families. We cannot deny Kim food during the wedding because she is family." I was getting extremely frustrated at this point. We seemed to be organizing Kim's wedding rather than mine. When we were searching for wedding dresses, or more accurately, traditional attire for our ceremony, it was the last straw. I adored the gorgeous green outfit my mom chose for me. Naturally, though, Kim had to stick her nose in. "Green isn't your color," she said. Roy agreed with her, saying, "Try something else." After trying on several gowns, I ultimately selected a rose gold one that I liked, though not as much as the green one. When it was time for Kim to go shopping, she chose the exact same green dress and made the purchase. I went crazy. I left since I didn't want to cause a scene there. Roy and I got into a heated argument when we arrived home. "Green doesn't go well with your skin tone," he informed me. "Kim looks better in it." "Quit being such a baby. You had already chosen your dress when Kim chose that one." I was shocked to hear it. I became aware that Roy consistently sided with Kim and never with me for the first time since we began organizing our wedding. The fact that the man I was staring at was the same one I fell in love with astounded me. Because Roy and Kim lost their father at a young age, they had a close relationship. He took her side when it came to our wedding and our vision, even though they were each other's best friends and support system as children. Roy would boast about his sister to anybody he could, even if they were admiring me, when we were dating in college. It was frustrating, but it wasn't a major thing, and I let it go since I knew he was very close to her. For example, if someone said that the coffee I prepared tasted good, he would remark, "If you think this is delicious, you must try the coffee my sister makes." However, since it's our wedding and not Kim's, I can't let it go this time. I screamed at him that if this wedding is taking place, it's either going to happen the way we both imagined it would or it won't. Roy became enraged and shouted back that I was only envious of his sister and would never be able to match her. Even though Kim had been nothing but courteous to me, he claimed that I was a bitter person for harboring resentment toward her. "She was just trying to help," he said. "I have no ill will toward Kim. All I want is the wedding of my dreams." I began to doubt everything. Imagine having a child, but naming them Tammy because Kim likes the name. Since Kim enjoys orange, picture your house painted that shade. It's 2 against 1 in your relationship. Can you predict which side you will always support? Do you truly want to follow Kim's wishes for the rest of your life? Roy will not change, so don't be so foolish as to believe that he would. Now put an end to the planning. Tell your dad that nothing will cost him a cent. Before your dad has to pay for something you could later regret, save him some cash. I can now see how bleak my future will be if I choose to wed this man. I really want to call my mother and cry. I simply want to give my parents a hug and let them know that I was blinded by love and that they were correct about him. I'll have to wait though. I cannot allow them to witness my state of misery. I must gather my thoughts and prepare myself to deal with this circumstance. I've already given the wedding planner a call and requested that she stop making any more vendor payments. Update 1. I'm eating coconut pudding at home with my sister, parents, and closest pals. To piece together the events, we spoke for a while. I neglected to add Maya, 34F, my sister. She works overseas and returned home a week ago to spend time with me and assist me with the wedding that was then approaching. Due to jet lag, Maya stayed at home on the day of the wedding dress shopping. My mom, 2 of my aunts, 4 cousins, 3 uncles, Roy, Kim, Yummy, the future mother-in-law, 2 of Roy's aunties, and 2 uncles made up the group of 18 individuals that went shopping together. Roy followed me back to his house after I became irate and fled, where we got into a fight. My mom finally lost her composure at the supermarket. She called Kim derogatory names and shouted at her. Team bride and team groom got into a heated argument after Kim replied by calling me some derogatory insults. Everyone was hauled out of the store after Yummy attempted to calm them down by calling the police. Kim vanished following the commotion. At this point, I got into an argument with Roy and made the decision to remain at my friend's place. Kim wasn't at any friends' or family members' homes, and she wasn't picking up her phone. Concerned for her safety, Roy and Yummy looked everywhere for her. The following morning, they finally located her at the home of a distant relative. When Yummy called, I didn't pick up. I experienced a full-blown panic episode at the hospital. My pulse began to race, I began to hyperventilate, and I kept fainting. Before I passed out, I recall feeling a needle pierce my arm. I spent a whole day unconscious. I don't recall anything, but my companions said that I was awake at one time and acting inebriated. I was in bed when I woke up at my parents' place. No one talked to me about what had happened or asked me any questions. When I woke up, my mother asked if I wanted coffee and gave me a nice grin. And you know what? On any given day, Mom's coffee is superior to Kim's. I talked to Maya about her life overseas. I got some ice cream and other nibbles from my dad. Delaying thoughts of the wedding and the consequences till a later date felt fantastic. Maya gave me a hug while I slept that night. I recall tears streaming down my cheeks and a warm heart. Everything will be okay, she insisted. Believe in God. It's acceptable to cry and express your emotions. I received a call from Roy the following morning. I took it up. I told him I was at home when he asked where I was, and he said he wanted to meet at his house so we could sit down and work out our issues. I consented, believing that closing this chapter of my life permanently would be the only way for me to move on. My mom, Maya, and I were driven to Roy's house by my dad. There were Roy, Kim, Yummy, his mother, and his uncle, Yummy's brother. Although it's absurd, I believed Roy had acknowledged his errors and would offer an apology. I was mistaken, boy. Roy began shouting at me for creating a commotion at the wedding dress store as soon as we were seated. He continued by talking about how Kim vanished, how angry she was over my mom's remarks to her, and how she might have hurt herself. He went on to say that he and his mother had to spend the entire night driving around the city in search of Kim, and he accused me of being cold-hearted for not returning Yummy's calls. Calmly, I asked him where I had been that evening. I hadn't picked up my phone, just like Kim. Our argument made me angry. Did he ever think about my welfare before? He remained silent for a few seconds before attempting to speak, but his rambling sentences were incoherent. Now I know who is more important to you, and it's definitely not me, I informed him. His uncle stepped in and said to my dad, "Kids these days fight over the smallest things. You can definitely teach your daughter that married life isn't like the movies and that sacrifices are necessary." In a strong response, my father said, "My daughter is the only one who can determine if a problem is little or major. Let her talk to her partner." "I know I am the side chick and your sister is the main chick," I added, turning to face Roy. Being her own husband's side chick would not be acceptable to anyone with any kind of self-respect. Your sister has arranged a wonderful wedding, and you are welcome to marry her. When I watched Roy's face flush, he slapped me across the face so forcefully that my nose and inner cheek began to bleed before I could react. My dad put him in a chokehold, struck him in the face, then continued to punch him in the stomach. Roy's uncle, Yumi, and my mother attempted to keep them apart. While tending to my bleeding nose, Maya gave me a firm hug. Meanwhile, Kim screamed like a banshee and accused me of something I can't even remember. Maya grabbed Kim's hand and gave her a backhand as she strode at me, threatening to strike me. Kim screamed as if she were being skinned alive and collapsed to the ground. At this point, neighbors entered and divided the group. A few minutes later, the ambulance and police showed up. Roy's face was bluish, and he was bleeding from his mouth. He was taken away by ambulance. In another ambulance, I was taken. Both families were sitting in the police station when I was transported there after receiving treatment. Roy wasn't present. Yummy came over to me, said she was sorry, and wished me success going forward. After hearing my account, the police asked if I wanted to file charges against Roy. Yes, I replied. They told me that Roy might file charges against my dad since he had a broken rib and a knocked-out tooth. We were all let to return home by midnight. My pals and I enjoyed brunch together this morning. We spoke a lot and came to the conclusion that I should begin treatment and perhaps take some medication for my mental health. While my dad continued to make cheesy jokes, we ordered pizza for lunch. My best pals Maya, Mom, and I later began reading my post's comments. The responses, particularly the ones in which I said I wanted to call mom and cry, really moved her. She assured me that I don't have to put up a brave front while I'm in pain on the inside and that I should never be afraid to show my vulnerability around them. She expressed her wish that I had gotten in touch with her earlier. I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to leave a comment and express care for a total stranger. I wouldn't have recognized the problems as clearly if it weren't for individuals like you. Even if I had forgiven Roy, I might have had a horrible marriage. I sincerely appreciate you all. You have helped me to believe in people again. You're entirely correct, everyone who stated, I need to grow a spine. But I would like to express my viewpoint. Despite the fact that I have a master's degree and my parents never taught me this, girls in my country are frequently taught from an early age that those who maintain families are good girls, and those who destroy them are bad girls. I wouldn't confront Kim because I didn't want to start a fight because that's what bad girls do. I'm hoping treatment will help me change this way of thinking. In addition to the loss of the relationship in the past, I'm still in mourning for the lovely future I had imagined. I am mourning the death of my life's love, who in retrospect never really existed. I feel lighter today, but I know it will take time for me to recover. My parents are ecstatic, but they keep their joy from me since they know I'm still in pain. Since the fallout, they appear to have aged backward. Roy has been released from the medical facility. I wish him and his sister a lifetime of happiness. I'm thrilled to have discovered who genuinely loves me, and you have all demonstrated to me how supportive my family is. I've never made a better choice than to dump Roy. I no longer feel the claustrophobia I did after Kim moved back, thanks to Kim and Roy ruining my happiness. This demonstrates that it was the proper choice to leave him. Fiancé blames me for his life choices, then breaks up. Am I the asshole for being disgusted and just saying okay? Original post. So, IDK man. I, 28, have been with my fiancé, Alex 34, since 2020. We met at a friend's party, hit it off, and have been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then he has been working at the university. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay, so the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly, just weird. For the past few months, he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples. He told me we were going to paint our walls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, for fuck's sake, forget it, and never brought it up again, even when I asked. Another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, forget it, it's not a big deal. This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on, whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work, he would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about, the apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then, on Monday, I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming, and after the last few months, I had made peace with it. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, I want to break up. Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me. First, because I didn't pursue my academic career further, even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like, it's my money, so I have the final say. That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our fucking crockpot. Then, he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters. Only, he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving, and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and fuck him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, I'm done. I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt, but after that rant, I was just disgusted. I looked at him, probably with a disgusted expression, and said, okay? He lost it, He said this is exactly what he meant, that it was horrible. We had been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was okay to our breakup. I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, "Typical, of course you're holding the apartment over me," and started ranting again, so I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-50 financial split. I make good money and am happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was our money because we were building a life together. Of course, I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared. As long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me, I was fine with it. More than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split to being a seething asshole complaining about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him at this point. I don't know. Should I have reacted differently? Edit. Thank you for all your opinions. It was nice to get this off my chest, lol. Just to clarify, that I don't feel like a victim. I feel like something happened, and my relationship just turned bad. He behaved like an asshole, but that is the extent of it. Very clearly, something is going on. But he doesn't want me to be part of whatever it is, and I have to respect that. Now I just have to detangle myself legally from him, and after that, I'll just be left alone with my ugly green wall color. I think I might also adopt a cat as my ex was really allergic. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, NTA. Dude basically said he hates you and everything about you. What are you supposed to do? Beg for his love when you can find someone who'll give it to you readily? Nah. Sorry this happened and that you were blindsided, but this will be a good thing in the long run. On to the next. FYIW. He sounds jealous, insecure and emotionally stunted. If what you've written is how things played out, then you dodged a huge bullet. Ope. He was basically doing his own renditions of 10 things I hate about you. I don't know. I mean, he wants to break up with me. Why would I plead? It is done to a deleted comment. I was really confused trying to take everything in. He talked really fast and a lot. So I did not know what else to say. Also because everything I do is wrong. I think he would have been even more annoyed if I started to cry or something. Ghost him now. I can't ghost him. We have to talk about the lease, about our wedding savings account and a few other things. To another commenter. Yes, that is easy said. But I have to wait to get a response from the landlord, we have to inform the bank etc. etc. So until I don't have confirmation that I am in the clear, I am keeping him unblocked. I have him muted. The all commenter. Sounds like his ego couldn't handle you being the breadwinner. Not your problem, he could have communicated like an adult rather than seething in his own insecurities. He sounds emotionally weak. Oop. Which is so dumb. He is a doctor in economy and past pursuing becoming a professor. Commenter. Dude basically hates himself for decisions he took without ever consulting you. He chose his comforts, but now since others seem in a better position, he is venting on you and making you the culprit. NTA. But your man has a little brain and doesn't know what to do with it. Oop. I would have supported him if he wanted to move away. IDK if we would have stayed together because LDRs are hard, but I would have been 100% supportive. Maybe he resented you for being successful while he wasn't. But that is the thing. He was successful. He has even published a few papers in important magazines and is on the way to become a junior professor. He is objectively really successful. This is all just so weird. Commenter. Girl, I've been with a man like that. They want drama. They want toxicity. They will fuck up your life out of pure insecurity and hate. You dodged a massive bullet. I'm sorry this happened, you deserve better. Wish you the best OOP. Then I hope he meets the telenovela star of his dreams. I prefer my boring happy life. Commenter. What country are you in? Here in the US, the average person would have accumulated debt if they made it that far in their education. Germany update. Post. To start, Alex moved out pretty quickly after the breakup. He has been staying with a friend, and we sorted out everything like mail, subscriptions, and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Luna, but I have been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Luna, Amun, and Kamar. She is still at her foster home for now, but I have visited her a few times, and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mom around like a shadow, and I can't wait for her to move in during the first week of December. I've already gotten her bowls, toys, and a bed by the window ready. Now on to what happened. Last week, I was out showing someone around the city. He is the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed. It was nothing special, just walking around, grabbing coffee, and pointing out useful spots in the city. Apparently, Alex saw us. I didn't even realize he was there, but later that night, I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public, said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up, and told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming though. They went from angry to desperate, with him saying things like, "At least admit you were lying to me," and, "Was anything about us even real?" It was exhausting and honestly a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, this guy isn't my boyfriend. He's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of family friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent, but Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened. Even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We are done. I've made that clear. After I didn't respond to his texts, Alex started calling. I didn't pick up, but the voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his new number too. It feels ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend, I went out to a bar with my friends. A few hours in, guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me, he came straight over. He was clearly upset, asking to talk, and I told him no. My friend stepped in, and thankfully, he left without causing a scene, but it ruined my night. It felt like I couldn't escape him, no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night, I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex, standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. I told him he needed to leave, and if he didn't, I would call someone to make him leave. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken and honestly a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote to his best friend about the situation but pleaded to talk to him. He said he would. I'm seriously considering getting a new phone number and possibly even talking to someone about how to handle this legally if it keeps happening. It feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Update post 2, November 28, 2024, 3 days later. Thanks for the concern and support I've received. I'm fine, really. A lot of people suggested things like getting a restraining order, but I just want to clarify that it's not as simple as walking into an office and asking for one. The process involves proving there's an immediate danger to your safety, providing evidence like texts, calls, or witnesses, and then attending court to get approval. It's not something you can do lightly or without solid proof. And no, I'm obviously not getting a gun. I've also seen people diagnosing Alex with various mental health issues, and I want to ask everyone to stop. Yes, something is clearly wrong, but I'm not a doctor, and neither are most of you. It's not fair or helpful to label him with something like bipolar disorder or anything else without real expertise. For what it's worth, I don't actually feel like I'm in danger. In the past month, these were the only 3 incidents that happened. I don't think he's actively stalking me so much as he just knew my patterns. The bar we were at is my favorite spot, and it was a party of one of my closest friends, so it makes sense that he might have guessed I'd be there. When he showed up at my apartment, he knew what time I usually got home. The city tour is the only thing that might have been more intentional, but it could also have been a coincidence that triggered everything. Anyway, this is the end of it. Yesterday, Alex came over with his mom and one of his friends. At first, I didn't want to let him in, but he promised me that this would be the last time I ever saw him. I agreed, mostly because his mom and friend were there, and I figured it would be more awkward to argue on my doorstep. When we sat down, Alex admitted that he was going through a crisis. He told me he was mad at me, but he didn't know why. He said he doesn't like me, that I annoy him, but that he weirdly still loves me, which is why he went crazy when he saw me with someone else. He assured me there wasn't anyone else on his end either. He said he felt like he was going insane. He talked about how he feels judged for being older and not being able to give me the life he thinks I deserve. He said he hates his colleagues, hates his job, hates everything right now, and that everyone and everything annoys him. He told me he feels old and like he should want kids at this point in his life, but he doesn't, and that thought terrifies him. He said he just wants to be alone and not talk to anyone for a while. I didn't say much. I mostly just nodded because I didn't know what to say. After he was done, he told me he was leaving. He's on some kind of mental health leave from work, and he said he's leaving the country on Sunday. He's going to South America to spend time in nature and find himself. He thanked me for everything and said he was sorry for how he acted. Then he just got up, grabbed the few things he had left at my place, and walked out. His mom was inconsolable. She kept apologizing to me over and over, saying how embarrassed she was by his behavior. I told her it was okay and that she didn't need to apologize to him. She cried a lot, and his friend ended up driving her home after Alex left. I don't really know how I feel about all of this. Part of me is relieved that it's over. Part of me feels sad for him because he clearly doesn't know how to deal with everything he's feeling. Mostly, though, I just feel tired. I'm glad he's taking steps to figure himself out, but it's not my responsibility anymore. Some of OOP's comments on not getting a gun, editor's note. It was more than likely a downvoted troll who asked, but I liked OOP's response. You can't buy guns at an Aldi. It's more dangerous to own a gun when you have no training with it than not owning one. Commenter. He's a little young for a midlife crisis, but certainly, the man is having issues with his life choices, and it's tearing him apart. Your empathy is warranted, but in the end, those troubles are his, not yours. Hopefully, this is the last you'll hear of him. Good luck to you. Oop. It's just a life crisis then, I guess. Who knows? Update, same post. December 3, 2024, 5 days later, about 6 weeks from OG post. Edit December 3. He is definitely gone. My friend sent me some of his Insta stories of him at the airport and then about a day later in Bogota. So, yep, he is gone. I am safe, and on Friday, I get to pick up Helios Maximus first, LOL, Heli for short. I found my Bill's Reddit account and discovered his dark plans for my family and my sister. What should I do? Original post. First and foremost, I will not be sharing Bill's username. I know this will cause most people to call this post fake, but his account has a lot of private information about many members of my family, including what are essentially dox bins and other private info. He doesn't know I know about this account, and I don't want anyone to go to his account to leave comments or message him. I'm 21 feet. My sister, Jane 28F, has been with John, 27M, for 2 years. I found his account totally randomly. I googled his name as he's a journalist and found a Reddit account with the same name. Think John Doe is dead 1997. I clicked on it and found tons of Reddit posts ranting about his girlfriend's family, mainly her little sister. At first, I thought I just came across a random, disturbed individual, but clicking on the post revealed more. Both my sister and I have unique names. Not super rare, but uncommon enough that they're noticeable in a list of names, and neither of us have met anyone with the same names as us. Plus, our surnames aren't super basic either. Think Aurora Fernsby. Fake, but similar name to myself. He also mentions enough personal details for it to be undeniably him. I wouldn't be writing this unless I was 99% sure. The posts are all either posted to vent/rant subs or straight to his Reddit page. They all have 0 to 3 upvotes and a few comments spread across, from what I can tell to be 100 posts. They're all mostly complaining about Jane, me, or our mother. The most concerning post is about me, though. I have a varied past with men, mainly influenced by SA. I'm in therapy, but it has made me more weary around men I do or don't know. This, apparently, enrages John. In this post, he details how he plans to offer to drive me home next I visit them, but instead of taking me home, he'll detour and take the scenic route through the country lanes in our town. He says he wants to make me afraid enough that I'll do something to her. But after 15 or so minutes, he'll turn around and drive me home. Therefore showing me that not all men are creeps and want to hurt her. His logic seems to be that since he acted weird but didn't hurt me, it should click in her brain that not all men are bad. The post is very long, like scrolling down for 15 seconds long, but he rants about how it's unfair that I flinch around him when he makes big gestures or yells at the TV, because he'd never do anything. He says he can fix me more than my therapist. A lot of the post is weird incel-y talking points. I was bawling while reading the whole thing. There is one comment telling him to get help, but John just responds, "I don't need help." She does. His comment history is also concerning. A lot of weird incel talking points, which doesn't make sense as he has a girlfriend. I'm not super versed in incel ideology, A lot of stuff about SA, women's roles in relationships, society, other races, ethnicities, religions, etc. I'm terrified of John. We weren't close before, but we didn't hate each other. To me, he was just a grown man with vastly different interests and we would never mesh cleanly. Now, I don't know what to think. My mind is frazzled. I'm going to tell my sister but I don't know how. I have screenshots of everything, links, etc. I just don't know how to lay it all out. Also, I need coping mechanisms. I'm in a constant state of pre-panic attack. I can feel it in my chest, but it's not tipping over into a full panic attack which is making me genuinely crazy. Sorry for the long post. Thanks in advance. Edit. As of 2 hours ago, I made my mom and uncle aware of what I've found. Every screenshot, screen recording and link. My sister is currently on a work trip so we're waiting for her to come back in 2 days. His account is still up as of 20 minutes ago. Thanks for all your advice. Mom, uncle and I are figuring out the best way to tell my sister. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. Ooh, I did not want to be the first comment here. This is so much to unpack. Do you think your sister will believe you? Talk to your parents' family first. They should hear about your fear before they hear from your sister that you're talking shit. Is your sister safe? I have no clue what else to say other than I'm gonna come back in case anyone has coping mechanisms for your pre-panic attack thing. I'm experiencing the same thing and it's also driving me insane. Pre-panic attack is a good way to describe it. I've been struggling with it for years but there's no medical term for it so thanks for giving it a name. OP. Is your sister safe? This is why I want to tell her as soon as possible, because I don't know. Not anymore, anyway. They seem happy together, but now I'm rethinking everything. Thanks for your advice. Commenter. Why is he so obsessed with you? He has a girlfriend and prefers to vent about you. Are you that close to him? He is not in a normal place mentally. Show the text to your sister and mother. He can be abusive to your sister OP. We're not close. I live closer to my sister than any of our family so I see him fairly often. But I never go to see him, he's usually just there, which is fair because it's his home too. But I never go with the reason for hanging out with John, just my sister. We're not close. We don't have much in common but get along well enough. I had no interest in being his friend or anything before for many obvious reasons but especially now. I have no idea why he's so obsessed with me. It's freaking me out. Commenter. How does he know so much about your trauma? Who told him? That's a very important question to solve beforehand. OP. Last year when I was SA'd by my, now ex, I ended up calling John to pick me up because my ex lived in a different city and was supposed to give me a ride back. I had a breakdown in his car and told him what happened. I hadn't intended to tell anybody about what happened but I couldn't keep it in. Also, my sister and I both witnessed abuse from our father which I'm sure she told John about and he, correctly, assumed I was also affected. Commenter. Does this mean your parents aren't safe advocates in this situation? OOP. No, not at all. I'm planning on telling Mum too. The no telling anyone about the SA comment was more of a spur-of-the-moment traumatized and mortified 19-year-old OOP responds to a troll, included because she had a great response. But I don't think all men are evil. John literally just projected that onto me. He wrote that assumption in a post where he detailed, graphically, how he wanted to make me fear for my safety to fix me, because he's upset I have trauma and CPTSD. And I'm somehow as creepy as he is and terrifying? I would love a deep dive into how you can come to that conclusion, because reading some Reddit posts don't feel the same as what John is planning to. Update post. As I mentioned in my last post, I had made my mom and uncle aware of the situation. We all agreed that waiting for Jane to come home from a work trip to tell her was the best course of action. When she got back, we sat her down to explain everything. I showed her the screenshots, the posts, and walked her through everything John had said. She was quiet at first, just reading through the messages with this shocked look on her face. She started accusing me of overreacting or somehow getting the situation wrong. She said that maybe John was just venting and didn't actually mean any of it. She also suggested that I might be reading too much into his posts because of my past trauma. My mom and uncle tried to step in and back me up, but Jane wasn't having it. She kept saying that we were blowing things out of proportion and that we didn't understand John like she does. At this point, she was getting really upset and we were all talking over each other. Then Jane said that I've always been distant from John and that maybe he felt uncomfortable around me because of how I act. At that point, I was done. I made it clear that if she decided to stay with him, I would have to limit my contact with both of them. My mom and uncle backed me up on this, and we all said that we couldn't trust John to be part of our lives anymore after seeing what he wrote. Jane stormed out of the house after that. She's barely spoken to me since except for a couple of cold texts saying she needs to process the situation. On Monday, it's Wednesday today, Jane showed up at my door, completely unannounced. She looked like she hadn't slept, and the first thing she did was apologize. I was shocked because I wasn't expecting her to come around so quickly. She told me that after she left, she couldn't stop thinking about the posts, and she started going back over everything in her head. She said she told John about the situation, and when I went to check, all his stuff has been deleted. This annoyed me and my mum, who was on the phone, as we told Jane to keep quiet for safety reasons. Luckily, I have all the evidence saved. She said that John had blocked me on everything to preserve his career, and that he was super pissed off with me for stalking him. He even told my sister that the account wasn't him, rather someone at work who hates him. I obviously don't know everything that happened between them, but it's caused a rift between them. I've moved in with my uncle for the time being as I was afraid of John showing up on these first few nights. We looked into legal options about the post but found nothing that would help us. My uncle said he's going to help me get in contact with his work, but I'm scared of John's reaction if I do that. As of now, my sister isn't totally settled on leaving John, so I've gone LC with her. She said her reasons for staying with John is because she just can't see John acting like this. Luckily, I have friends and family who are on my side. Sorry, this update is kinda bleak. Am I the asshole for ruining an engagement by revealing the truth about my horrible ex from 10 years ago? Original post. A little backstory is needed, so please stick with me. Growing up, I, F27, had a childhood friend, Angie, F27, who was as close as a real sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's place, celebrated family events, etc., from 6 years old till 18 years old. Elle even lived at her place in second grade while my parents went to a nasty divorce. I learned to speak some Russian, as she is Russian, and she learned to speak some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and little sister were like a family to me. During our teenage years, she had her two male best friends, one whom she started dating, and another one, Nico, now 29, who was Russian as well, whom I started dating at 17. Growing up, I had issues with a heart condition. I won't bore you with the details, but I had to take a lot of meds, but got healthier starting from the 16th. I didn't have to take them daily, but only when my heart rate became irregular. But then immediately, as it would become extremely painful, my heart would cramp, I would start to hyperventilate. All my friends knew this, Nico included, and that I would black out if my meds got taken with alcohol. I didn't smoke much or drink much growing up as a result, since I was worried about my health and only did drink at home or in a safe setting. Legal drinking age is 16 here, and I only drank wine or beer if at all. I had my first time with Nico at 17, and when my parents stayed at a retreat 2 weeks later, he came over to have a date night. I did drink 1 glass of wine, but started having health issues later, resulting in me taking my meds and being unconscious. I was a bit sore the next morning but didn't think much about it. 2 weeks later, I'm informing Nico that I'm late on my period and he starts to panic, confessing he had sex with me while I was unconscious. We had it before, so he didn't think much about it. Apparently he didn't have a condom, but since I was on the pill he figured it was all right, and he also didn't come in me, but in a tissue. I felt violated and disgusted by myself. I didn't know how to describe this and only told Angie about it. I was an utter mess for a few years, and wasn't able to have sex again until 2 years later. I didn't remember any of it, but was too ashamed to go to my mom or anybody else. I didn't think of it as rape back then, I was too young to really understand what and how I was violated, and Angie told me it's all right, I should break up if I feel bad about it, but we were in a relationship and did have sex before. I broke up with him the following day, and apparently he cried about his broken heart to her. As Nico and Angie were close and hanging out together a lot, they started dating a few months afterwards, and I had to see him every time when visiting her. I told her I'm not able to see him, but she didn't understand where I'm coming from. The contact stopped and we haven't texted or seen each other in years. I still followed her and her family and saw that her brother is expecting his first child. As I was extremely close with her family, I just commented on the Insta post expressing my gratitude when he reached out to me. I missed his wedding, but he wanted to ask if I would be interested in joining the baby shower, as it's been years and we've been extremely close before. He told me I was like a third little sister. I just asked if Nico will be attending as well, as Angie and him have been dating for 9 years now, and he said yes. I didn't elaborate much but just expressed that I'll send a small present if he can give me his current address but won't be attending. He kept on pestering me what exactly happened all those years ago and why I'm not in their lives anymore. Angie told her family I'm not able to see her with an ex of mine, but her brother thought there's more behind it. This is when I think I could be the asshole. I told him the truth about what happened back then. And while I didn't know it at 17, I know now, that this was rape and I named it as such. I didn't receive any message back from him, but a few days later Angie reached out to me, furious. Nico had planned to propose during the baby shower, but Angie's brother is against it now, having learnt why I stopped the contact. She loves Nico and will stay with him, but by doing so, her brother said she is no longer a part of his life, as he doesn't want his little baby girl in the same family as a rapist. Since then I've been getting messages from old high school acquaintances, telling me I should have ignored it and not told anybody. Since I didn't speak up back then, I lost the right to do so now, and am a horrible person for ruining somebody's life over some stuff he did 10 years ago when he himself was a child as well. Am I truly the asshole for speaking up? AITA has no consensus bot, OP was NTA. Relevant comments. OP responds to multiple comments about how things are wrong, and she could speak up. OOP. I understand now how wrong it has all been, and that it's rape. But we grew up in a small town with approximately 5,000 people, and I honestly don't know which way it would have gone if I would have spoken up. He was 19 back then, 2 years older, and everybody is in everybody's business. It would have made sound back then, like it does now. They all still live there, and it has made its rounds. That's why so many of our old classmates are reaching out. Most of those who still live there have left me furious messages. They have known Nico for all their life, and are standing by him. I moved out when I was 20, my mom shortly after, and didn't stay in touch most. It still breaks my heart to get such a furious response from people who are my whole childhood. And thank you for all your best wishes, I genuinely appreciate it. OP did not ruin Nico's life. He did this himself. OP. I understand that what happened is on him. The backlash I am getting is because he apparently is not that person anymore, and in something he did as a teenager, according to Angie, should not ruin his life and is in no way related to the daughter her brother will have. I don't know if he will ever act out or do something, but it doesn't invalidate what happened to me, so thank you for confirming this. I just can't stop feeling bad about this having so many consequences. While I do not want to see Nico or Angie, I have made my peace with what happened to me back then. Commenter. But why are they attacking you and not the brother? You are not the one objecting to the marriage. Just feels like misogyny and victim blaming tbh. OOP. I guess because he is family, and I'm the outsider who ruined their family. I have been getting so many messages from people who didn't even have my number back then. I'm blocking the best I can, it's just hard to not let these comments get to your heart. Commenter. NTA. They got together so soon after the two of you broke up. I can't help but wonder if your friend was convincing you to break up with Nico because she was hoping to get with him all along. OPO, I honestly don't believe it. They've known each other for years and she broke up with her boyfriend 2 weeks before I broke up with Nico. It was a 5K town, even adding the people our age from nearby villages. Our school had 500 people attending, hence the options are very limited. OP on getting therapy in order to heal from her past trauma. OP. I was in therapy for 2 years and found peace with what happened to me. I am lucky, as I have no memory of it, but that didn't make it easier. It took me 2 years to be able to have any form of sexual contact again, but I am okay now. It's a part of me, but it's a part I can live with. Honestly, thank you for your kind words. OP on her health issues at the time when the incident happened. OP. Oh, it's not drunk blacked out. My medicine back then was supposed to lower my heart rate extremely, as I would have a racing heartbeat and my body would start to shut down, hyperventilating, my heart not being able to follow such strong use, and basically tripping over the high heart rate. My heart would start skipping beats, then not being able to follow my thin blood which flows faster than regular one, and the skipping would be the painful one, as it would start to cramp up. I'm sorry I'm not able to explain it better, English is not my primary language and I lack the medical vocabulary to fully describe it. The pill slowed my heartbeat and general body functions, thus making me extremely tired. I'd mixed it with alcohol. It would basically act like a super strong sleeping pill. My body could be thrown off a cliff and I wouldn't wake up. I did give consent for the first time we had sex, but that was our first and only time. I don't know if we would have had sex back then if I would have been conscious, as I didn't like it, being my first time and all, and wasn't that eager to repeat it. I don't think calling it rape is wrong, but what I had issues was if I should have approached this subject more sensible. In that way I can understand that I ruined their engagement plans for next week, or his surprise of one update one. First of all, I am immensely thankful for all the people who took the time to not only read through my story but also comment. I read every single comment and tried to respond to as many as possible. It gave me a little bit of hope of compassion for victims of rape and also the courage to not cave to the backlash I received. Mental update. Reading all the messages defending my choices on speaking up made me realize how insecure I was about what I am allowed to do and how much I was trying to make it right to other people besides myself. This especially included Nico and Angie. All of you are right. If Nico had changed, he would have apologized, reached out, or tried to make amends in some way. Either when word got to him from his brother-in-law or at some earlier point in his life. My former best friend Angie should have been able to feel some sort of compassion if she had any respect for me as a human being or the time we spent together. Her reaction showed that I shouldn't hesitate in my actions. I went to therapy from 21 onwards and thought I moved on from the rape as best as I could, but I realized how ashamed I still am almost 10 years later about an incident that wasn't my fault at all. I was ashamed to speak up back then and afraid that people around me would look differently at me. And somehow I still felt bad about speaking up today, so I am trying to own what happened to me now and not apologize for other people's behaviors, especially as they don't even show me respect. What happened since then? I archived every nasty message I got on WhatsApp so I wouldn't have to read them, but would have the proof if needed at a later point. Angie's mom called me the following day of the incident, crying. I shouldn't have answered the phone, but during the 10 years of friendship I saw her as an aunt, almost a second mom. She always joked that while her children would run around the house doing whatever, I would always take the time to drink tea and talk with her, showing her more love and time than her actual children. While she said she's sorry for what has been and for what I went through as a child, she couldn't believe that I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. With Angie's brother refusing to have Nico as part of the family and Angie standing by Nico's side, it's divided their family and she is heartbroken. She has grown to love Nico like family as well and has known him for nothing more than a considerate young man who she knows will make her daughter happy. It wasn't nasty names or angry talk, just a heartbroken mother who faked to acknowledge my pain and saw the fault in me. Angie's mom tried to get me to apologize or to take it back, but I refused as I don't see the fault in me. With everything that has happened, I believe that Nico hasn't changed and is just hiding it better somehow. He can see how people are standing by him and supporting his behavior so he won't have to change. And that is something I didn't want to indulge. Angie's mom not even one used the word rape, and I tried to correct her every time she talked about it. Trying to name it for her to understand better, but she would just start sobbing more and it didn't make sense for us to continue to talk. Angie's mom used to be in contact with mine for some time, and she reached out to her after our talk. I was afraid that my mom would find out, since she's from a more conservative background. We had a long talk and I didn't get to see her, physically, yet, but she apologized for not being there for me or not making me feel like I can talk to her. I tried to calm her as best as I could, but when she asked me if my current partner knows I was used like that, I got angry. She was scared my partner would leave me if he found out, implying it was something that made me less precious or appealing. When she asked me to keep it a secret from our family abroad and in our country, I hung up. She was acting exactly the way I was afraid she would, as if it's something shameful. It was especially hard as I am trying my best to move away from the feeling of shame. She has since apologized, but it's clear that her view of me has changed. I don't yet know how to deal with it, but that's something to worry about in the next few weeks. As some of you suggested, I wrote Angie's brother, Sven, again and apologized for the mess, but am glad that it is out in the open and how proud I am that he's defending his family. I asked if his old email is still working as I would just send a gift card. He didn't respond, but I got a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for speaking up and informing them about Nico. There were apparently a few moments that made her uncomfortable, some jokes Nico made, and in retrospective she can see why. Sven apparently informed her the moment he got my initial text, and both of them have since seen Angie but not Nico. She refuses to be in the same room or house as him, and the same goes to their unborn daughter. Sven and Angie's mom has been at their place multiple times to beg to forgive Nico, and Sven caved a little. Angie and Nico will get married. Sven will attend but his wife will not. He is allowed in the family but not in contact with either Sven's wife or daughter. Those restrictions are not for Angie. Sven was suffering trying to ease his mother's worries and was not able to take a stand and cut them out completely. This is a compromise they made without his wife's approval, and she told me she's trying her best to cut them out of their life indefinitely. She wanted to move back, closer to her family as well, and thinks this is a perfect opportunity but isn't sure if she can follow through. His wife told me she's terribly sorry for all the issues that came my way and it has been a lot trying to handle the situation on their side. Sven knows it's not my fault but he doesn't want contact. It's hard for him to talk or see my name because even though he knows I'm not the guilty party, in some way I was the bearer of bad news and he sees me as the start of all this drama. She told me a few times that neither believe I'm the bad guy, they just are tired with everything and it's just been extremely hard on them. That's all that has happened so far. I am frustrated about how everything came to be. It feels like Nico will just continue with his life without having to be remorseful. I didn't want him to suffer, but I think some part of me wanted to at least receive some kind of apology for all the suffering I went through afterwards. I'm having to deal with my mother and her changed shameful view on me, and even though I'm happy it's all out, it's extremely hard to stand by my choices. My partner and my best friends both have been my shoulder to cry on during this ordeal. My best friend was especially enraged for me, and I am extremely grateful to have both by my side. Right now I'm just emotionally drained, but I'm sure it will be better once a few weeks pass. Comments. Commenter 1, you spoke up and did the right thing. If others can't handle the truth, that's their problem. Keep focusing on your healing and support. Commenter 2. NTA. Unfortunately, it's a tale as old as time. The woman is blamed and the rapist gets off without a blemish. Only by speaking the truth over and over will the situation improve, and when the boomers die off. Commenter 3. 100% the right thing. What you did may keep Nico from attacking someone else, or may encourage one of his other victims to step up. You never know how much people like you help everyone else, when you stand up and speak out and are not ashamed of what was not your fault, but will point the finger at the one to shame. You're making the world a better place. I'm sorry for the family Nico misled and the wife who was foolish enough to stay with him, but it's no longer your business. You did the right thing and it's going to help others. If no one else says it to you, thank you for doing all this. You are amazing. Update 2. My first post was 3 months ago and this one will be my last update for now. It is not a good one, but I sincerely wish to leave it all behind me. That includes distancing myself from this Reddit account. These posts helped me let go of my anger, similar to a journal, and I am grateful for all the people who are enraged with me. I hope to open it again someday, with a final happy update, but for now every little pop-up is a reminder of the anxiety I am still dealing with, and I do not have the energy to deal with this topic outside of my therapy anymore. Short summary for those who don't want to read the old post. Nico raped me when I was his girlfriend 10 years ago. I didn't see it as rape back then as I was unconscious. Afterwards I broke up with him. Shortly after, my best friend Angie from elementary school started dating him and they have been together for almost 10 years. I couldn't bear seeing him and cut contact with her and her family, with whom I was really close. Her brother Sven reached out to me 3 months ago after I left a short congratulation on a pregnancy picture with his wife. He invited me to their baby shower and I declined. After a lot of back and forth about him asking me and being suspicious as to why the contact broke off in the first place, and why I refused to be in the same space as his sister's boyfriend, I confessed what happened back when I was 17. Afterwards his family had a huge fight, with him wanting to cut Nico out of their lives for being a rapist and his mom and sister standing by Nico. I was the scapegoat and received a log of hurtful messages from both their friends and former classmates. They called me out on ruining a man's life based on a childish mistake. Nico was 19 back then. And even Angie's mom reached out to me. I was left to pick up my life, my mom being more ashamed than understanding, and started therapy again. I removed almost everybody tied to that incident: Sven, Angie, Nico, their family, old classmates. And only kept contact with old classmates who sended me messages of support. Update 2. I work in a very specialized field. To get the proper qualification it takes on average 6 to 8 years, bachelor, master and then state bar to be allowed to practice. While it is not very competitive, not a lot of people choose this profession, and it is highly sought after. My current company paid for my master's and my extensive course as preparation for the bar exam, and I have been doing well there. My HR department called me 2 months ago. Apparently they have been getting a lot of outside calls from Angie's mother and other relatives, saying I am involved in a Me Too scandal and being a liability for the company as I don't have issues ruining the lives of men. How they could imagine this could change anything I do not understand. I work for a global company, they have known me for years, I never had any issues prior and quite frankly, they do not care. However, they have been getting frustrated with the amount of calls and apparently even reached out to the police and the calls have stopped since. Nonetheless, they reached out to me to check on my mental well-being, offering to give me paid leave, till it settles a little bit, and offering company paid therapy. Therapy is covered by my country's health insurance but it is tricky to get one without waiting time. But I already had my old one on retainer and started going right after the incident. They made it clear that they invested a good amount of money in me and do not wish to lose me. I was ashamed that this part of my private life slipped into my professional one. It started to influence the career I worked hard for years to build, and while my company assured me that it would not affect the workload and clients I'm getting, word got around, and it was clear for my colleagues that I am going through something nasty, and the company does not want to deal with it. All this stress and anxiety led me to hyper-focus on my work. I took on whatever I could, paranoid that another call would come and for whatever reason, the company would move me to a dead-end department where my career would basically be over. At the same time, I started looking into different companies who would be able to buy me out, as I am tied to my current company for 5 years after graduation, 3 more are left, and I got a management position in a rival company with a huge salary jump. I couldn't be happy about it, I was just relieved I wouldn't get the pity looks from my colleagues anymore. I went to the police with all the hateful messages and the HR protocol with the call history and got a restraining order for Angie's mom. Should she contact my new company again, I have a public LinkedIn, it is needed for my job. At least I have some sort of proof that her words hold no meaning. I got asked if I want to pursue the rape but decided against it. It would open the whole ordeal again. I don't have proof, besides Nico and Angie not denying it, and quite honestly was afraid of what it would do to my career. I did keep contact with a good friend of mine who grew up in the same small town but moved away 5 or so years ago. As we share a Nintendo Switch Online family account, so we tend to be in contact at least once a year for a short phone call when she has to send me the money for the subscription, and we just tend to make a phone call with updates out of it. Yesterday was one of those days and the whole Nico thing came up. While she didn't hear it directly, her mom is still living in the small town and reached out to her, asking if I'm alright. She expressed her disapproval about how everything came to be, as she was close with Angie back in the days as well and remembered how close we were and how often we spent time together, like sisters. She informed me that 2 months later, 7 baby girls were born, and while neither Nico or Angie were seen in any of the pictures or stories with the baby, a month ago Angie and Nico had an engagement party. Both Sven, the baby, and his wife participated, and are in the family pictures. I remember how enraged Sven's wife was, and how she told me she herself felt I was comfortable with Sven. Now it is all forgotten and forgiven. Nico's parents own a few houses and gave Angie and Nico a house close to their home, and Sven and his wife apparently bought a house in the same street. It is as if nothing happened at all. Listening to my friend telling me the updates, I'm honestly not sure if I should have asked her to not tell me anything. I just feel empty and betrayed. Not by Angie, she made her choice, not by Sven, it is his sister, and at the end of the day when he asked me what happened and then didn't have the decency to answer me because he saw me as the one who ruined his family, it was clear that the truth didn't matter. Not by Sven's wife, who has a baby girl, an innocent daughter who she should protect as a mother, even though she told me she would do her best to keep her daughter away from Nico, but just by life. I fought to have it all behind me, just to have this old wound ripped open again 3 months ago when Sven kept plastering me. I got hate messages, but knowing that maybe someone would be hesitant towards Nico, when he showed strange behavior, made me feel like maybe I did right. Maybe by speaking up I helped a girl out to not be raped. My own mother was ashamed of what happened to me, told me I was to keep it quiet so my family abroad wouldn't get to hear it. Just for it all to be all good again for Nico. After everything that happened these last 3 months, I truly understand why victims of rape chose not to speak up. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. As a victim of the same type of abuse, though not RP, from a former romantic partner, you are worth more than you think. You do not need to suffer in silence or shame. You didn't do anything wrong, or anything to be ashamed of. I am so proud of you for telling your truth. From one survivor to another, you are worthy of love, acceptance, and happiness. Life hasn't betrayed you, even though it feels like the world and everyone in it has turned their back on you. People do care, you matter, and you will outshine the shadows of your past when you find the courage to embrace the future with open arms. I believe in you, and I am proud of you. Keep being you. Commenter 2. I hope you get to heal and have no shame. From the interaction with your mother, she sounds Latin, which can be very tricky with this stuff. Nevertheless, the reaction is not on you but on her. Deutsch? I am unsure if so, but in some small tiny towns they are very backwards. All that doesn't matter, you get to deal with this at whatever rhythm you feel comfortable. You are not used. You are not less than, you are a woman that has survived. I send you a big hug. Ope. Yes, my mom is Latin, but I grew up in a small village with maybe 5,000 people. My grandpa used to be a pastor, which makes it so much harder. Even though my mom has been living in Germany for 30 years, speaks perfectly even with the local dialect, she's not progressive. It doesn't help that the small village itself isn't progressive either. I moved out at 18 and never looked back. In her eyes it is my fault since I had a boyfriend at 17 and now I am damaged goods because of the rape. We don't talk about her hurtful words anymore and she is trying her best to be more understanding, but at the end of the day it is internalized. I know I am not less, but after everything surfaced, the shame, the anxiety and less just came back, after I worked years to get over it. It will take time, I'm sure I'll get there again, even though it doesn't feel like it right now. My partner is telling me over and over again, reminding me of my worth, and I am sure one of these days it's going to stick. Thank you for your words. My mother always defended my older brother, but when he stole my younger brother's fiancée, Our family could never be mended. My mother wants me and my brothers to overlook the fact that our younger brother's fiancée was stolen by our cunning golden child older brother. I never imagined that my family would fall apart in this way. A year ago, I would have laughed if someone had predicted that my elder brother, Caleb, would do something so heinous. My mother has always led us to believe that Caleb is the golden child, the one who did everything correctly. However, I can't stop thinking about how we got here as I sit here in my apartment and relive the nightmare that occurred only a few weeks ago. Logan's wedding, or what was meant to be Logan's wedding, was the beginning. Logan, my younger brother, is the most sincere individual I've ever encountered. He is a gentle, considerate man, who would give you his last dollar without hesitation. We were all overjoyed when he proposed to Avery. Avery seemed to love Logan as much as he loved her, and she was intelligent and humorous. Together, they were ideal. They were one of those couples you can tell is meant to be. And then there was Caleb. Even now, the details remain unclear. Logan and Avery were choosing flowers and completing the guest list one week. Avery was canceling the wedding the next week. Logan arrived at my door completely broken, which is why I can still clearly recall that day. His eyes were red-rimmed from sobbing, and his face looked pallid. He informed me that Avery had broken up with him. She simply stated that she couldn't carry it out without providing an explanation. I initially believed it might be chilly feet. Yes, that does happen. Weddings are a stressful event. Then, however, the truth was revealed. Avery and Caleb, who was supposed to be Logan's best man, appeared at a family BBQ less than 3 days later. We were all invited over for family time by my mom, Linda. I wanted to see how Logan was doing because I hadn't seen him since he arrived at my door crying. Caleb holding Avery's hand as they walked into the backyard as if it were the most natural thing in the world is something I will always remember. The whole yard fell silent, as if someone had put life on hold. As I tried to take in what I was seeing, I glanced at Avery and then at Caleb. "What on earth is this?" "Louder than I intended?" I asked. The king of smug smiles, Caleb, shrugged as if it didn't matter. He declared, "Avery and I are now together." Thankfully, Logan wasn't around, but my sister Riley dropped the pitcher of lemonade she was pouring. The patio's glass broke. I couldn't read my mother's expression as she looked at Caleb, but it wasn't one of shock. For me, that was the first warning sign. Linda had forewarned no one, but she instinctively knew this was happening. "You're kidding," I responded, trembling. Avery refused to look at me, so I hoped this was some terrible joke. Her face reddened with guilt, but she continued to stare at the grass. I've detested Caleb's calm down expression since we were young. In a frustratingly casual tone, he stated, "It's complicated, Mason. But everyone will benefit from this." "For everybody?" I lost my temper. "How about Logan? You just took your brother's fiancée, but what about that?" The term "stole" made Avery wince, but Caleb didn't even pause. The relationship between her and Logan didn't work out. "This wasn't planned," he said. I made sure he didn't finish though. Too furious to even look at him, I bounded away. Riley came into the kitchen after me. "Did you see Mom?" she said, trembling. "She said nothing at all. She seems to be fine with this." The second warning sign was that Caleb had always held a special place in Linda's heart. Being the eldest, he made the family proud with his corporate career and college degree. Logan and I, on the other hand, were just Logan and me. I used to make a joke about us being the family's spare parts, but it didn't feel humorous anymore. I gave Logan a call later that evening. I asked him if he was aware of Avery and Caleb. He didn't. He sounded hollow when I told him, not even upset. Silently. "Of course it was Caleb," he said. "It's always Caleb." The consequences were immediate. Riley completely cut all communication with Caleb. He dismissed my attempt to confront him once more, claiming that I was exaggerating. A few days later, my mother contacted me, her voice eerily serene. "Mason, we need to talk," she remarked. "About what?" Still fuming over Caleb and Avery, I inquired. "This weekend, we're having dinner at the house. Riley and you should come. It's time to put this behind us." I believed I had misheard her. Move past this? Logan was deceived by Avery. His heart was broken by her. Additionally, Caleb. She gently interrupted me, saying, "I know it's hard, but Caleb is still your brother. Despite his error, he is now content. Isn't that the important thing?" I couldn't speak. My mother, who was meant to defend us all equally, was once again taking Caleb's side. Riley rolled her eyes as I told her about the dinner. "Are you serious?" She is attempting to ignore this. Normal. I didn't disagree. Nevertheless, I felt compelled to leave, not for my mother or Caleb, but for Logan. I wanted him to know that he still had support. I was afraid of what I would discover when I arrived at my parents' house on Saturday. Riley was already there, crossing her arms as she sat on the porch. She said, "This is going to be a disaster," as I approached. I refrained from arguing. Caleb sat at the dining table as we entered, smiling as if he hadn't just split the family in two. Avery was also present, sitting next to him as if she were a part of the group. At the head of the table, our mother, Linda, was grinning as though nothing was amiss. "Come sit," she offered with a cheerful tone. "We're going to have a nice family dinner." Riley glanced at me as I gazed at her. I thought I may suffocate since the tension in the air was so heavy. However, as soon as I sat down, the catastrophe started. I was not interested in sitting at the table. To be honest, I wanted to just walk away and flip the fucking thing over. Riley and I had to speak for Logan because he wasn't present. Caleb needed to be called out. What everyone else was too cowardly to say had to be said. With a display of food so spotless that it seemed as though my mother, Linda, believed cooking could clean up this catastrophe, she stood at the head of the dinner table. She was grinning, bringing joy into the space as if she could make it material. Linda said, "Let's just sit down, eat, and talk." Riley whispered to herself, "I'd rather eat glass." As I glanced at her, Avery and Caleb were seated at the far end of the table. The sight of them together still made my blood boil. Avery. As if they were on a freaking date, Caleb had one arm thrown languidly over the back of her chair. However, Avery refused to look at Riley or at me. She continued to look at her dish with her head down, as though the mashed potatoes were the most amazing thing she had ever seen. I inquired, "Where's Logan?" I was surprised at how piercing my voice sounded. I got one of Linda's stoic "you're ruining this" expressions. Logan decided not to come. Riley answered, "Yeah, no kidding," while crossing her arms. Wonder why? Linda gave her a stern look but remained silent. She probably knew Riley wouldn't give up. Riley has always been the firecracker among us. Even though she is only 2 years my junior, she has never shied away from speaking her mind, particularly when it comes to Caleb. Caleb, who was buttering a roll as if he hadn't just exploded a nuclear bomb in our family, caught my attention. "So, Caleb," I replied. "You're just okay with all of this?" He gave me his angry, calm-down face as he gazed up at me. God, I detested that expression. Since we were young, he had been giving it to me as if he were superior, smarter, and older. He questioned, "What do you mean by this, Mason?" "This." I waved my hand at him and Avery and snapped. "Caleb, Logan's fiancé, was taken by you? The same Logan who asked you to be his best man because he trusted you enough. With this, are you kidding me?" With a heavy sigh, Caleb put down his butter knife, acting as though I was the one who was being unreasonable. "Look, Mason, this wasn't planned by Avery and me, and I know it's complicated. It just happened. Things just happened." Riley leaned forward in her chair and scoffed. "Is that your justification? You don't just happen to start dating your brother's fiancé?" Riley's comments made Caleb cringe, but he didn't raise his head. I was hoping she would stand up for herself and say something, but she just sat there and let Caleb speak. At last, displaying his aggravation, Caleb combed through his hair. "I won't just sit here and watch the two of you attack us. I have been open and honest with Avery. We're content together and don't require your blessing." "Honest?" I fired back. "You believe your treatment of Logan was sincere? You lacked the courage to tell him directly. Avery had to inform him when she decided to call off the wedding. That's enough." Across the table, Linda's voice could be heard. Mom gave me that familiar scowl of disapproval, the same one Mom used to talk back to me when I was a child. "We are not going to spend this dinner yelling at each other like children." Riley pushed her dish away and said, "Then maybe Caleb shouldn't have acted like one." Linda replied, "Riley, please," in a strained voice. "This isn't beneficial. The reason Caleb and Avery are here is to continue their family's journey. We must all extend forgiveness and move on from this." "Forgive and let this go?" Unable to believe what I was hearing, I gazed at her. "So you're just okay with this?" Slowly, I asked. "You're okay with what Caleb did to Logan?" Linda's expression softened, as though she were addressing a young kid who was just unable to comprehend the world. "Life is complex, Mason. Despite their mistakes, people should have the opportunity to be happy." "Happy?" Riley's fist slammed on the table as she burst. "Logan is wretched, Mom. You're behaving as if none of this is important. You're here acting like a hostess like it's Thanksgiving dinner after Caleb made him feel embarrassed." With his chair scuffing the wooden floor, Caleb got to his feet. "You know what? I don't have to sit here and have my home attacked. I've finished our talk. I yelled, "Sit down," in a low, menacing voice that even surprised me. I was so tired of Caleb walking away from everything. Responsibility, consequences. Logan, you don't get to walk in here with Avery like nothing happened and then act like we're the problem. At last, Avery raised her voice, but it was tremulous and quiet. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I turned to her, and so did Riley. I questioned, my rage mixed with incredulity. Then why did it? Avery seemed to be waiting for approval before speaking as she glanced at Caleb. She inhaled deeply when he remained silent. Caleb and we started talking months ago. At first, it was innocent but... She paused. He told me things about Logan. Things that made me doubt everything. What things? Asked Riley. Avery stumbled over her words. He said Logan didn't really love me, that he was just going through the motions because he felt like he had to settle down. Caleb... I froze as everything came together. For months, Caleb had been sowing doubt in Avery's mind. That was his personality. Attractive, cunning, and self-centered. Riley responded, "You've got to be kidding me," in a disgusted tone. "You let Caleb convince you Logan didn't love you? Logan adored you, Avery. Everyone could see it." Avery winced, but Caleb moved ahead of her while speaking in a chilly tone. "We're not going to sit here and let you two attack Avery. This conversation is over." "Fine," I responded as I got to my feet. "Then I guess I'll have this conversation with Logan instead. I'm sure he'll love hearing how his own brother was working behind the scenes to sabotage his relationship." Linda began. "Mason..." But I interrupted her. I turned and left, Riley following closely after me. "Logan deserves better than this, Mom. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what to tell you." Riley released a breath that she had obviously been holding as soon as the front door closed behind us. She mumbled, "Unbelievable. Caleb's not even sorry. He believes his own lies." I didn't respond. What Avery had revealed about Caleb getting into her head and manipulating her emotions had my head spinning. This was no fortuitous romance. For some reason, Linda was ignoring the fact that Caleb had been planning this for months. Riley turned to face me as we entered her vehicle and said, "We have to tell Logan." "I know," I replied. "But I don't think this ends here." And I was correct. It didn't. Riley's engine hummed through the peaceful ride to Logan's place. She remained silent, and I did too. The identical thought was running through both of our minds. How in the heck were we going to explain this to Logan? Avery calling off the wedding was one thing, but what about knowing that Caleb had been deceiving her for months? That seemed like a completely different animal. I kind of thought Logan wouldn't respond when we arrived at his house. With the exception of the occasional text, he had remained a phantom ever since the split. However, the door slowly opened, revealing Logan staring at us with black circles under his eyes. He appeared slimmer, as if he hadn't eaten. He said, "Hey," in a low voice. "Didn't think I'd see you guys tonight." I said, "Can we come in?" After a moment of hesitation, Logan moved aside to allow us to enter. The flat appeared as worn out as he was. The curtains were drawn, his couch appeared to be his bed these days, and takeout containers were piled on the coffee table. Logan laughed without laughter when he saw that I was staring. "Yeah, I know it's a mess. Take a seat," he said, sweeping papers from the cushions and pointing to the couch. Logan remained standing, leaning against the wall with his arms folded, while Riley and I sat. He appeared protective, as though he was aware that we weren't just stopping by. "What's up?" he finally inquired, his gaze darting between us. Riley didn't hold out. "Logan, we need to tell you something about Caleb." Logan stiffened as soon as she spoke Caleb's name. His eyes widened and his jaw tensed. "I don't want to talk about him," I whispered. "You need to hear this. It's about what really happened with Avery." Her name made Logan cringe. I thought he was going to throw us out, but he sat down in the armchair across from us after letting out a trembling breath. "Fine," he replied. "Say whatever you came here to say." I didn't mince words. Despite the pain, Logan deserved to know the truth. Avery told us tonight that Caleb had been talking to her for months. He told her things that made her believe you didn't really love her. At first, Logan's expression remained unchanged. He remained motionless as he gazed at me. He gently averted his gaze and squeezed his fists against his thighs, but I wasn't even positive he had heard me. He spoke the words. "So Caleb convinced her to leave me," in a whispery tone. "Manipulated her," said Riley again. He played with her head. "Logan," she stated. "She thought you were just settling for her because Caleb got in her ear." Logan gave a sour laugh, but it was devoid of humor. Of course he did. That's Caleb. He's always been good at taking things that don't belong to him. I was astonished by the hostility in his voice. Logan has consistently maintained our family's composure. Logan is the quiet anchor if Riley is the firework, and I am the middle child who is always caught in the between. He is not angry. He simply becomes depressed. Now though, he now had an angry expression. He's done this before, Logan stated abruptly as he looked at the ground. Riley said, "What do you mean?" Logan's expression darkened as he looked up. "Do you honestly believe that this is the first time Caleb has taken anything that was rightfully mine? Do you recall my senior school soccer tryout?" Logan inquired. While attempting to piece things together, I scowled and said, "Yeah, you didn't make the team." "No, I did," Logan said with a sour smile. Caleb persuaded the coach that he would be a better option and that I was unreliable, even though I made the squad. It took me years to find out. While Caleb made varsity, I was dismissed. "What?" Riley's eyes widened. "Why didn't you say anything, Logan?" "Because nobody would have believed me," he shrugged, adding, "Caleb has always been the one. The golden boy is Caleb. Caleb is impervious to error." After hearing this, something clicked in my mind. Caleb had been our mother's world for years, charming, ambitious, and self-assured, everything an ideal oldest son should be. However, now that the cracks were showing, it became clear that he didn't just take things because he wanted them. He did it to win, to show that he was superior to the rest of us. "Logan," I continued slowly, "what do you suppose caused him to do this to Avery now?" Logan gave me a dumbfounded look and said, "Because he could. I've always made Caleb envious. It's not over. He does a good job of hiding it. Like he's taken everything else, I believe he decided to take away Avery after realizing how happy I was with her." Logan was right. This wasn't just about Avery. It was about Caleb needing to repeatedly demonstrate that he was the best, regardless of who he injured along the way. There was a brief period of silence. Riley appeared to want to punch a wall, and I felt sick to my stomach. Logan wiped his face and said, "You know what's the worst? I cherished her. I cherished her dearly. I also had faith in Caleb. I assumed he was pleased with me." I muttered, "I'm sorry," since I had no idea what else to say and it seemed so hollow. "You don't have to apologize to me," Logan said, shaking his head. "Please let me know what you plan to do about it." Riley grimaced. "What are you saying?" Logan's voice was harsh as he stated, "I mean, Caleb isn't done? You think he's simply going to stop after this? Mom is already on his side. I'm the bad one for not letting it go, but he'll keep making things up until the rest of the family forgives him. He acts in that manner." Riley and I looked at each other, and Logan was right. I hate to say it, but our mother was already setting the stage for us to go over this, and if we didn't do something, Caleb would win, as he usually does. Riley stated, "Mom needs to see what's going on, so we need to talk to her. She cannot continue to stand up for him." "Good luck with that," said Logan, snorting. "Until the day she passes away, Mom will stand up for Caleb. Your time is being wasted." Linda had always made excuses for Caleb, perhaps because he was the firstborn or because he reminded her of herself, but whatever the reason, she had been ignoring Caleb's behavior for years, and it had finally come to this point. I didn't want to believe that, but I knew deep down that Logan wasn't wrong. One thing was clear to me as I watched my younger brother sit in his damaged apartment, though: Caleb was not going to get away with this time. I firmly stated, "This time, we're not going to let him win." After giving me a long look, Logan nodded and said, "Good. Because I'm tired of being a punching bag for Caleb." I sensed a change in myself as Riley and I left Logan's apartment that evening. I was done being kind, done letting Caleb bully everyone while Linda applauded him, and it was time to face Caleb head on. This time, I wasn't going to hold back. Riley and I quickly decided what needed to happen next. Caleb needed to be confronted, really confronted, and not just about Avery. This was about everything that Caleb had been doing for years, including manipulating people, twisting circumstances, and making himself appear like the ideal son while ignoring the rest of us. Logan was correct. Caleb wouldn't stop unless he was forced to, and we were going to force him. When Riley and I unexpectedly arrived at our parents' house the following morning, Linda opened the door, looking astonished to see us and as though she had been up all night worrying. To be honest, good. Her grin was forced. "Mason, Riley," she continued. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk to Caleb," I said as I walked into the living room, sweeping past her. Linda groaned deeply as she shut the door, and Riley trailed behind me. "This again? Can't you just," she asked, her voice already worn out. Riley interrupted, turning to stare at her saying, "No, Mom, We can't. Is Caleb present? I inquired. He's upstairs, but I don't know why you, Linda said after hesitating, then nodded. Perfect, I murmured as I made my way up the stairs. Linda called after me and said, Mason, don't start anything. Linda had let Caleb for too long, and it was time for someone to do what she wouldn't do, so I disregarded her. I didn't care what Linda thought at this point. Caleb was sitting on his bed with his laptop open when Riley and I marched up the stairs and down the hallway to his old bedroom. The door was half open, so we didn't bother knocking, and I pushed it open. His face twisted into a mixture of smugness and annoyance when he looked up and saw us. To whom am I due this distinction? Here to lecture me some more? Caleb replied, leaning back against the wall and shutting his laptop. I crossed my arms and remarked, We're here for answers, not to lecture you. I've already explained everything, Caleb said, rolling his eyes. I didn't plan this with Avery, it just happened. Why aren't you all able to accept that and go on? Because it's a lie, Riley said. Avery told us that you had been peeping into her head for months. You were ruining her friendship with Logan the entire time, Caleb. Even as Caleb's face reddened, his arrogant look persisted. So? What? Relationships are always ending. Logan's inability to retain her is not my fault. You think this is a game, don't you? I said, stiffening my fists at my sides as I walked toward him. You're not even sorry for what you did. Why would I? Logan was never right for Avery, Caleb retorted. I was kind to her. You took her. Riley screamed. You can't stand seeing other people happy, so you tricked her into leaving Logan. Watch it, Riley, Caleb said as he got to his feet, his face changing to a more icy one. You have no idea what you're discussing. I answered softly. Oh, we know precisely what we're talking about. Caleb, you've been doing this for years. Stealing what belongs to Logan, undermining him, and claiming to be the golden child while the rest of us suffer as a result. You're being dramatic. Caleb grinned. Am I? Logan told us about the soccer team, how you persuaded the coach to cut him so you could take his place. I shot back. Does that sound familiar? For a brief moment Caleb's grin wavered, but he immediately got back to it. That was years ago. Who gives a damn? Logan is concerned. Just like you ruined this, you ruined that for him, Riley yelled. Caleb chuckled, but it was a mocking, bitter laugh. You guys are unbelievable, he said. Do you believe that I am the bad guy? Logan is pitiful, he was and always has been. He allows others to walk all over him because he is weak. Avery chose me because I'm superior to him. I didn't steal her. Riley stepped forward and poked a finger at Caleb's chest, saying, You're not better than anyone, Caleb. Even though I could feel my fury boiling. The only reason you get away with being a manipulator and a liar is because Mom allows it. Caleb snarled. Leave Mom out of this. Why? Riley retorted. We all know you're her favorite. No matter what you do, she will stand up for you. Linda suddenly materialized in the doorway. What's happening in here? With a strong voice, she demanded. Riley turned to stare at her and added, Ask your perfect son. Adding that he had recently confessed to coercing Avery into leaving Logan. Linda turned to face Caleb as her face went white. Is that true? Of course not. Caleb answered softly, his voice flowing. Mom, they're misrepresenting what I said. I didn't do it. You claimed that Avery picked you because you're superior to Logan, Riley yelled. Linda's expression was unreadable as she turned to face Caleb, who gave her a wide, naive look, as he often did when he had to get out of trouble. Come on, Mom, you are familiar with me, I would never act in such a manner. For a while, I hoped that Linda would finally recognize Caleb for who he truly was, but she hesitated, and I could see the doubt in her eyes. Then, as usual, she folded. Her voice was tense as she replied, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. We're not going to solve anything by yelling. Riley laughed bitterly and said, It's unbelievable. You continue to protect him. I'm not defending anyone, Linda responded. But I'm not going to let this family fall apart over a relationship that didn't work out. This family already is falling apart, I whispered quietly. And it's because of Caleb. Caleb looked bored and shrugged, saying, Cry about it. I finished our talk. Riley snapped, No. We're done with you. What is the intended meaning of that? Caleb narrowed his brows and asked. I said, Logan's done. It means we're not letting you win this time. Riley is finished. I am too. You're by yourself. You can't just cut me out of the family, Caleb said, looking truly shaken for the first time. Watch us, replied Riley icily. Mom, You can act like Caleb is flawless all you want, but the rest of us aren't playing along anymore, I said, turning to Linda, who appeared stunned. Either you're with us or you're with him. You make the decision. Linda gave me a slap-like look and said, You can't ask me to choose. Riley remarked softly. You simply aren't aware that you've already made your decision. I believe that Caleb recognized that he had finally lost control and pushed himself too far since he didn't say anything as we were leaving, and for once, he didn't have a smug response or a lazy shrug. I was relieved as Riley and I left the house because, although Caleb might not be facing actual repercussions today, he would eventually, people like him usually do, and I wasn't going to be there to catch him when he fell for the first time. After that altercation, we didn't hear from either Caleb or Linda for a few days. To be honest, I believe they were both waiting for us to return, as we always did, especially with Linda. In our family, things had always gone like this. Caleb made a mistake, Mom covered it up, and the rest of us had to keep our mouths shut for the sake of keeping the peace, but not this time. You have no idea how long I felt like I was screaming into a void, I added, and Logan actually appeared glad when we told him about what had transpired at the home. It's about time, he muttered, shaking his head. Riley and I had made our decision. Linda made several attempts to contact us over the course of the following week, first by phone and then by text, but each message was the same. Family doesn't behave like this, so we need to communicate. Caleb is your brother, and while I understand your anger, this has gone too far. You don't fully comprehend the story. Let's discuss this over dinner. We chose to ignore her. Riley, Logan, and I were all on the same page for the first time, and it felt liberating. Caleb was no longer our responsibility, so we didn't have to comply if Linda wanted to hold on to him. Caleb wasn't finished though. On a Thursday night, I received a call from an unknown number. I don't typically accept such, but for some reason, I decided to answer. Hello, Mason. I remained silent for a moment, almost expecting Caleb to knock on my door, but I was still taken aback when I heard his voice. It sounded desperate, not cocky or arrogant. What are you looking for? With a flat voice I asked. Caleb hurriedly continued. I need to talk to you. It's important. Hard pass. His voice trembled. Mason, please. And I was shocked because Caleb demanded things instead of asking for them. I answered, against my better judgment. All right. Don't talk on the phone. In an hour, meet me at the depot, please. I didn't want to attend, but I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something wasn't right. The depot was an old diner we used to frequent as kids, and it felt strangely symbolic, as if Caleb was trying to exploit some shared history to guilt me into listening. I didn't recognize Caleb for a moment when I entered the depot an hour later and saw him sitting at a booth in the corner. He had bags under his eyes as if he hadn't slept in days, and his normally flawless hair was unkempt. Caleb, what do you want? I questioned, slipping into the seat across from him. He didn't immediately respond, instead looking down at the table with his fingers tapping nervously. I messed up, he finally stated in a hushed voice. With a sour laugh, I said, yeah, no kidding. No, Mason, I made a huge mistake, more than you thought. I had never seen Caleb this afraid, and there was something about the way he said it that made the hair on the back of my neck rise up. What are you discussing? I inquired. After inhaling deeply, Caleb shakily exhaled. I'm in trouble. Bad luck. I saw panic for the first time in his eyes as he glanced up at me. What sort of issue? With quivering fingers, Caleb ran a hand through his hair and nodded. Debt. I owe a lot of people a lot of money. Mason, I made an effort to correct it, but it got out of hand. His voice broke as he trailed off. Avery. What are you saying? I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. I think I've never seen Caleb seem so embarrassed as he looked at me. I needed money, he said. I reasoned that by getting to know Avery better, I might be able to persuade her to assist me. Her family is wealthy, so I reasoned that perhaps. You made use of her? Startled, I cut in. You used Avery as leverage because of your debt? Despite his recoil, Caleb said. I didn't intend for it to get this far. Although I didn't anticipate her leaving Logan for me, I was unable to stop it once it got going. Caleb had not simply taken Logan's fiancée because he wanted to win, he had done it out of desperation. He had played with Avery's emotions, ruined Logan's life, and split our family apart in order to hide the catastrophe he had created for himself. I gazed at him, trying to take in what he had just said. Is Mom aware? Quietly, I inquired. No, and she can't, Caleb said, shaking his head. If she learns, I'm finally able to recognize you for who you truly are. Good, I responded sourly. She is entitled to the truth. Caleb's voice was suddenly begging, Please, Mason, I need your assistance. I have no other people. Aid you? I chuckled incredulously. Are you serious? After all of your actions? Caleb said. You're my brother. Family is meant to stay together. Don't you dare pull the family card, I responded. You don't get to hide behind that after what you did to Logan. Like a drowning man pleading for a life raft, Caleb gazed at me and said, Please. Without you, I am unable to resolve this. I felt nothing for Caleb for the first time in my life, no rage or hatred, just emptiness. He was no longer my brother, he was just a man who had ruined every relationship he had ever had. I got up and said, Caleb, you need help, but it won't come from me. Caleb started to disagree, but before he could say anything more, I left. Later that night, Riley, Logan, and I convened at my place, and for once, no one was shocked when I told them all Caleb had confessed. Logan said, He's always been like this. It just took him this long to fall apart. How about Mom? Should we tell her? Riley said. After giving it some serious thought, I shook my head and said, No. She's made up her mind. Let her if she wants to think Caleb is flawless. We're done with him though, alongside her. With everything. I had spent my entire life trying to keep this family together, but now I know that sometimes you have to let things fall apart. For the first time in years, I felt free. Neither Linda nor Caleb were my burden anymore. With a small smile on his lips, Logan turned to face Riley and me and said, You think we'll be all right? Yeah, I replied with a smile. We'll be all right. And I did believe it for once.